Chapter 1537 Reaching Planet Humbad. Chapter 1537 Reaching Planet Humbad. Author's note. Unedited chapter. As Gustav moved further, the number of planets in the surroundings kept reducing. The percentage on his quest readout steadily increased, reaching 99.5%. In the distance, he saw a planet unlike any other he had encountered in this desolate region. The planet's surface was marked by a massive hole that covered about 35% of its entirety, glowing with the ominous red of bubbling magma. Gustav knew immediately that this had to be planet Humbad. He surged forward at incredible speed, his focus entirely on his destination. However, his rapid approach was abruptly halted. Two massive dark hands appeared, seemingly materializing out of the planet itself. A colossal being emerged from behind the planet, its size dwarfing even the largest celestial bodies. This creature was at least 6 times the size of planet Humbad, with its form shrouded in shadow and darkness. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent red light, and its body was covered in scales that seemed to shift and ripple like liquid shadow. Huge, ragged wings extended from its back, adding to its terrifying presence. Gustav barely had time to react before one of the massive shadowy claws swiped at him. Instinctively, he dodged with a burst of speed from his void stepping boots, narrowly avoiding the destructive swipe. The force of the claw's movement caused shockwaves that rippled through the void, distorting space and time. Drawing upon his vast array of abilities, Gustav launched an offensive maneuver. He raised his hand, and a surge of atomic disintegration energy flowed from his fingertips. The milky white energy streaked towards the massive creature, aiming to break through its dark form. The beam collided with the creature's chest, creating a hole that was incredibly large, but just like mist, the hole soon covered up. The creature roared in pain and anger, swiping its other claw at Gustav. He narrowly avoided it again, moving with lightning speed. However, the creature was relentless. It continued to attack, each swipe faster and more ferocious than the last. Gustav was able to evade its attack and continuously rip through it with his own counterattack, but despite that, the creature remained relentless. The dark shadowy being's massive swipes sent forth storming winds and rifts of energy that threatened to obliterate anything in their path. Gustav recognized the imminent danger and quickly unleashed Cohelia. Multicolored layers of rhombus-shaped lights phased out from his body, forming a gigantic hole that swallowed up the attack entirely. The dark being, now fully revealed, was a towering monstrosity, at least 6 times the size of planet Humbad. Its body was a swirling mass of darkness, with shadowy claws that seemed to absorb the light around them. Its eyes, which were like glowing red orbs, the size of a moon, locked onto Gustav with malevolent intent. Gustav knew that using his most powerful attacks directly could risk damaging planet Humbad and possibly destroying it completely, so he had to be careful. He needed to get the dark being away if he wanted to use Cohelia to consume it. As the creature prepared for another attack, Gustav launched himself towards it, weaving through the air with lightning speed. The dark being swiped again. Its claws cut through space, causing streaks of destruction to sweep across the environment. Gustav dodged, but even the near miss sent shockwaves through his body. He gritted his teeth, realizing the sheer power of his opponent. This is getting problematic, he thought. Gustav summoned SJ with a thought, and it knew what to do. SJ emitted a bright glow before transforming into a replica of the dark being. The two entities stood face to face, mirroring each other. One could tell that the original was quite shocked. Gustav commanded the SJ to move far away from planet Humbad with a plan in his mind. With a roar, the dark being sent forth more attacks forward, while Gustav did his best to evade. He followed SJ with incredible speed, causing them to head farther and farther away from planet Humbad. Gustav gathered his strength, preparing Cohelia for a decisive blow. As the SJ moved further away, Gustav positioned himself strategically. "Now," he whispered while focusing all his energy into Cohelia. The SJ, sensing Gustav's command, suddenly exchanged places with the dark being. In a split second, the real dark being found itself far from planet Humbad, facing a fully unleashed Cohelia. Gustav unleashed the multicolored energy with a force that shook the very fabric of space. Cohelia, rhombus-shaped lights, glowed intensely as it expanded, engulfing the enormous dark being. The creature let out a deafening roar, thrashing wildly, but Cohelia continued to swallow it. Gustav watched intently in silent awe. The dark being's resistance was formidable, but Cohelia's consuming power was relentless. The swirling mass of darkness was soon completely swallowed up within the multicolored lights. "You're done," Gustav muttered. The remnants of the shadowy energy dissipated, leaving nothing but the vast emptiness of space. Gustav took a deep breath before turning his attention back to planet Humbad. The massive hole, which was red like live magma, still bubbled ominously on its surface. Gustav knew his mission wasn't over yet. He had to find Dimension 6 and complete his quest. Gustav descended towards the planet with his senses on high alert. He felt a mix of anticipation and wariness as he hovered above the desolate surface of planet Humbad. The sight before him was haunting. Vast stretches of land marred by craters, smoking fissures, and scorched earth. It was clear that this planet had seen immense devastation, with no signs of any remaining structures or signs of civilization. The massive hole covering 35% of the planet's surface was quite visible. Its center casted an eerie light across the surroundings. Gustav landed softly, causing his boots to crunch against the cracked ground. The air was thick with the smell of sulfur and ash. He retrieved SJ, and it floated before him. He rubbed its surface affectionately before it vanished. The percentage on his system display read 99. 9%. Almost there. All he needed to do now was find Dimension 6. Gustav activated his perception, spreading it out in all directions, seeking any clues about Dimension 6. Suddenly, he detected a faint but distinct life force nearby. His eyes widened in surprise. "There's someone here," he muttered to himself, astonished. The life force felt powerful and ancient, far from ordinary. Gustav began to move cautiously with his senses on high alert. He flew over the devastated landscape, following the life force. The terrain was challenging, with jagged rocks and deep crevices, making it difficult to navigate. The closer he got, the stronger the life force became. As he approached the source, Gustav descended into a massive crater. The air grew colder, and an unsettling silence enveloped the area. The crater itself was the size of multiple cities combined, so he still kept flying forward. The desolate environment stretched out before Gustav, a barren wasteland of jagged rocks and eerie silence. The air was thick with the remnants of a once thriving civilization, now reduced to rusting metal and crumbling structures. A strange energy lingered in the atmosphere. Gustav navigated through the debris, his senses heightened as he followed the faint signal of a living presence. The sky above was a sickly shade of purple, streaked with ominous clouds that hinted at a storm brewing in the distance. As he ventured deeper into the heart of the ruins, the outline of a colossal structure began to take shape on the horizon. There, in the middle of a decayed mechanical ring that once served as a transportation hub, stood a feminine figure in all white attire. The ring, though ancient and broken, still exuded a faint glow, remnants of the technology that had powered it. This feminine figure had an almost ethereal. Her ash-colored hair cascaded down her back in waves, catching the muted light and giving her a divine glow. She was clad in a flowing dress that clung to her curvy hips and accentuated her slender waist. Her skin was flawless, a soft porcelain that seemed untouched by the harsh environment around her. Her eyes, a deep shade of violet that sparkled with warmth as they met Gustav's. "Well, if it isn't my favorite troublemaker," a smile spread across her unfathomably beautiful face as she spoke. Gustav felt a rush of emotions at this moment. "Miss Amy," he breathed, his voice barely a whisper. "So you've been here all this time?" "I've been waiting for you," her melodic voice rang out. He closed the distance between them, and they embraced in a passionate hug that conveyed the depth of their connection. For a moment, the desolate surroundings faded away, and it was just the two of them, reunited at last. "Everything makes sense now," Gustav said, pulling back slightly to look into her eyes. "This is why you knew so much about the warp demolator and what I needed to do." Miss Amy nodded in affirmation. "You're not wrong, but there's more to it." Chapter 1538, Catching Up with Miss Amy. Chapter 1538, Catching Up with Miss Amy. Author's note. Unedited chapter. The embrace between Miss Amy and Gustav was warm and familiar. For a moment, the bleak surroundings seemed to vanish, replaced by the comfort of their reunion. Gustav felt a lump in his throat. He hadn't realized just how much he missed her. When they finally pulled apart, Miss Amy scrutinized him with her sharp gaze. "You've gotten bigger," she remarked with a tone of surprise. "What have they been feeding you? You almost look like a grown-up now." Gustav chuckled. "And you, Miss Amy, look a little shorter now." Miss Amy pulled his cheeks with a peal of light laughter. "You cheeky little." "I can't believe you're here. Everything makes sense now," Gustav said while pulling back slightly to look into her eyes. "This is why you knew so much about the warp demolator and what I needed to do." Miss Amy nodded in affirmation. "You're not wrong, but there's more to it." "There is?" Gustav had a look of curiosity on his face. "I'll tell you everything, but before that, bring me up to speed on everything that has happened so far, kiddo," Miss Amy said with a smile. The landscape of the desolate planet stretched out before them. It was a bleak expanse, marked by destruction and chaos. The ground was pockmarked with deep craters, each one glowing with a magma-like light at the bottom, casting an eerie, reddish glow across the barren terrain. The sky above was a perpetual twilight, heavy with dark clouds that seemed to choke out any hope of sunlight. Not like there was any in the stagnant, siderous void. They were standing at the center of a decayed, technological ring, a relic of a once sophisticated transport system now reduced to rusted and twisted metal. The scent of ash and decay lingered around. Gustav adjusted his jacket, its edges singed and worn from his travels. He looked at Miss Amy, who seemed almost out of place in this environment, her presence a beacon of familiarity and strength. The ground around was a desolate expanse of charred, jagged rocks. They made their way towards a particular position. They found a spot to sit, a flat rock that offered a somewhat comfortable perch. Gustav began recounting everything that had happened in Miss Amy's absence. He started from the moment he became a fugitive on Earth. He told her about the false accusations, the solo objectives he had to accomplish, and his struggle on the run avoiding manslaughter. Miss Amy listened intently, occasionally interrupting with questions or exclamations of disbelief. "And then," Gustav continued, "I would have tried to contact you, but I didn't want to be a bother. I figured it was time for me to start taking care of my own problems." Miss Amy's response was immediate. She knocked him lightly on the head, just as she had always done when he said something particularly foolish. "You idiot," she said, her tone affectionate but firm. "You should know by now that I will always show up for you, as many times as it takes." "Ouch!" Gustav rubbed his head while smiling. I know. But you've already done so much for me. I didn't want to drag you into my mess." Miss Amy sighed as her expression softened. "Gustav, I may not have told you before. You're the one person I'll always look out for. So long as I am around, you don't have to face anything alone." Her words hit him hard, and he felt a surge of emotions but did his best to hide them. "When did you become so sentimental? Is old age finally starting to catch up?" "I missed you too, you stubborn fool," she replied while knocking his head again. Gustav held his head while both of them suddenly burst out in laughter. It had been too long since they spoke like this. The Demon Queen and the one person who could make her display an array of emotions that usually wasn't present for anyone else. Gustav felt a sense of nostalgia. The only difference about this and the old times was their location as well as current level of strength. So, Gustav began, his voice echoing slightly in the still air, "You've really been in Planet Humbad all this time?" Miss Amy nodded with a look of seriousness. "Yes." Gustav's eyes wandered over the decayed ring. "It's hard to imagine this place once had life." Miss Amy smiled faintly. "Indeed, but things change, sometimes drastically." She paused, her gaze locking onto his. "Gustav, I was aware when you were branded as a universal fugitive." Gustav's eyes widened in surprise. "You knew?" "Yes," she said softly. "Before I could do anything about it, I was accosted by a strange figure on my planet. This figure knew everything about you, your situation, and how things would turn out." "Who was this person?" Gustav inquired. Miss Amy took a deep breath. "They called themselves a time candidate." "A time candidate?" Gustav repeated as he recalled Commander Urgrel. "Was it a Tark?" "Exactly," she confirmed. "This time candidate told me that I had to follow specific steps to help you. They knew you would be in danger if things played out precisely according to how you plotted them, so I played a crucial role in your survival." "What kind of steps?" Although Gustav could already tell, he still asked. "They gave me a set of instructions," Miss Amy explained. "They told me to create a clone of myself to handle things on my planet while I came here to wait for you. The clone took care of all the necessary procedures to ensure you could get here safely." Gustav stared at her, processing the information. "So that's why." Miss Amy nodded. "I've been here for a long time. I lost track of the days, but I knew you'd make it here eventually." She looking out at the desolate landscape with a thoughtful expression. "I am meant to lead you to Dimension 6, where the truth about your origin and everything else will be unveiled." A strange, ominous wind began to blow, swirling dust and debris around them. The wind carried a faint, eerie whisper, as if the planet itself was trying to communicate with them. "You know where Dimension 6 is?" he questioned. "And what do you mean by origin?" Miss Amy's gaze remained distant. "I can't explain everything right now. The time candidate's instructions were clear: direct you to Planet Humbad, and personally lead you to Dimension 6. What's in Dimension 6 that I need to see? And why do you seem so evasive about it?" Gustav's suspicion rose. She turned to him with a smile. "Gustav, some truths are too dangerous to reveal all at once. But once you get to Dimension 6, you will get the answers you seek." "I see." Gustav looked around the surroundings. "I guess the existence of this place confirms the theory about Planet Humbad's destruction. The Slarkovs lied." Miss Amy nodded. "Yes, the Slarkovs' history is tied to this place. Thousands of years of their civilization's secrets lie buried here, crumbling before our eyes." Gustav's mind reeled. The Slarkovs had always claimed their home planet was destroyed in a catastrophic event, but here he was, standing on the very soil they once called home. The realization that they had lied about such a fundamental aspect of their history was staggering. He always knew, but it was another thing to confirm the suspicions physically. He turned back to Miss Amy. Tell me the truth, Miss Amy. What am I supposed to find in Dimension 6? What does it have to do with me?" "Listen, kiddo, all I can say is you will find answers about your past, your powers, and your true purpose and origins of a lot of things. I can't explain much about Dimension 6, but just prepare yourself." The wind howled louder, whipping Gustav's jacket and sending chills through his body. He clenched his fists in anticipation. "Where is it?" Gustav inquired. Miss Amy turned around and pointed in a particular direction. "Shall we get to it, then?" he stated while getting to his feet. "Are you ready?" Miss Amy asked him. Gustav nodded in response while Miss Amy got to her feet. She placed her hand on Gustav's left shoulder, and they immediately vanished from their spot. Gustav and Miss Amy reappeared before a massively caved-in part of the planet. The ground was opened up into an immense chasm that stretched as far as the eye could see. The scent of sulfur permeated the surroundings, and a red, magma-like glow emanated from the depths below, casting eerie shadows on the jagged walls of the crater. Gustav stared into the abyss with a slight look of trepidation. "Is Dimension 6 down there?" he asked. "It's down there all right," she said with a serious tone. "But you need to be very careful while we're descending. Down there is a part of the planet that is extremely fragile. If you channel your bloodline, it could cause the entire planet to split in half." Chapter 1539, Uncharted Descent. Chapter 1539, Uncharted Descent, Author's Note. Unedited chapter. Gustav nodded in understanding. "So no powers." "Yes. Don't channel at all." They began their descent, using the rough edges of the chasm to slowly make their way down. The walls of the crater were uneven, with sharp protrusions and narrow ledges that offered precarious footing. They jumped from one protrusion to the next, each movement calculated and deliberate. The descent was slow and treacherous. The deeper they went, the more intense the heat became, and the glow from the magma pits below grew brighter. Inasmuch as Miss Amy had told Gustav not to channel his bloodline, he was still very much unaffected by this level of heat. A normal mixed blood would have been toast by now, but Gustav still had inbuilt durability. "How deep do you think this goes?" Gustav asked while maintaining a steady gaze. "It's hard to say," Miss Amy replied, her voice calm and steady, "but it might take a while." As they continued to descend, the walls of the chasm seemed to close in around them. The air grew thicker and more oppressive. The glow from the magma pits illuminated the rocky surfaces, casting a reddish hue that made the entire scene feel surreal. Gustav glanced over at Miss Amy, who moved with ease. "You seem to know your way around here," he remarked. "I've had some time to explore," she said with a faint smile. The ledges grew narrower the further they descended, forcing them to be even more cautious. Gustav's entire body was at a very high temperature at this moment, but he maintained an unfazed look. After what felt like hours of careful maneuvering, the walls of the chasm were now almost vertical, forcing them to rely on handholds and footholds that were barely wide enough to support them. The air remained thick with heat and the stench of sulfur. Despite the challenges, they pressed on. The glow from the magma pits made the rocky surfaces appear almost molten. "Watch your step," Miss Amy cautioned as they approached a particularly narrow ledge. "One wrong move and we could fall, and you'd have to use energy which could cause a split." Gustav nodded as he carefully navigated the narrow path. His fingers clung to the rough rock as he maintained his balance. The ledge was barely wide enough to support them, and the heat from the magma pits below was becoming unbearable for his special-made outfit. The walls of the chasm seemed to pulse with a rhythmic energy. Miss Amy and Gustav continued their descent into the chasm. The journey had been ongoing for 12 hours at this point, and they were still at it. The terrain was a mix of narrow ledges, steep drops, and jagged rocks. Sometimes the edges were sloppy enough for them to walk down, but other times they had to jump from one protrusion to the next. Each step brought them closer to the heart of the desolate planet, and the bubbling sound of magma below grew louder, accompanied by an increasing heat that would have been unbearable for anyone else. Despite the oppressive environment, Gustav and Miss Amy powerful bodies remained unaffected by the extreme conditions. The glow from the magma pits made the entire descent feel like a journey into the underworld. "It almost sounds like the planet is breathing," Gustav voiced. "The core of a planet is a place of immense energy. It feels alive because we're getting closer," Miss Amy responded without coming to a stop. Gustav looked around as his face was illuminated with red glow. I've been thinking about the Slarkovs. They must have had some way of predicting this catastrophe. But how did they know it would happen? Miss Amy considered his question while they kept stepping forward. The Slarkovs were masters of advanced technology and foresight. They likely had systems in place to monitor their solar system. When they detected the warp demolator, they would have known it was only a matter of time before their world was dragged through it. But why Earth? Gustav asked while leaping to a lower ledge. Of all the planets, why choose Earth as their refuge? Miss Amy moved almost like she was floating while answering Gustav. They must have seen some kind of potential on Earth. If there's more to it, I have a feeling you'll find out down there. Gustav nodded thoughtfully. They sure had everyone fooled. There better be a good reason why they never mention the warp demolator. The path grew steeper, and they had to slow their pace to navigate the treacherous terrain. Will I truly find out everything in Dimension 6? Gustav wondered out loud. I believe so, Miss Amy replied with a confident tone. Unless that time candidate person is wrong. Gustav took a deep breath. They continued their descent, and the bubbling sound of magma growing louder with each step. I wonder what would have happened if the Slarkovs had stayed and found a way to save their planet. Mixed bloods most likely wouldn't exist, and all the technology. Gustav realized how choosing Earth really set many things motion. Miss Amy shook her head. The Slarkovs made the best choice they could under the circumstances. Staying would have meant certain death. By fleeing to Earth, they ensured their survival and the continuation of their legacy. As much as I hate the existence of mixed bloods, which was due to their decision, I am grateful for your existence. So I guess it's not all bad. Gustav glanced at her briefly. It's the same for me, Miss Amy. Although I can't help but wonder if the world would have been kinder without bloodiness. The glow from the magma pits grew brighter, casting an almost blinding light on the rocky surfaces. The heat was now beyond bearable for fabrics. Scorched holes were starting to appear on Gustav's clothes. How much further do you think we have to go? Gustav was worried about being stripped completely naked before they arrived at their destination. We're getting close, Miss Amy replied. Gustav was sure he had heard that before, but he decided to take Miss Amy's word for it. They continued to navigate the treacherous terrain, the path becoming increasingly unstable. Rocks crumbled beneath their feet, and the air was filled with the sound of distant rumbling. Back on planet Argon, it had already been a couple of days. Yet, the air still carried the scent of Gustav's bittersweet departure. The group stood in a clearing surrounded by towering trees, their leaves rustling softly in the gentle breeze. Endrick stood at the center of the group, his expression resolute. I need to find the other time candidate, he announced. The fifth sacred item of the outworldly is crucial, and it's taking too long. Understandable, but not outer space missions for me at the moment. I think I need to spend some time with my earthly father. I haven't properly caught up with him, and I owe him that much, Falco said to everyone. Angie looked at Endrick in concern. I wanted to wait here on planet Argon, but Ethereal informed me that when Gustav returns, he will appear in a different location. E stepped forward. Angie, do you want to go back to the MBO in the meantime? It's better than waiting here without knowing where Gustav will show up. Angie sighed, her shoulders relaxing a bit. That's true. I'm still an MBO officer after all. Eldris smiled with a calm look. I need to return to my family. It's time I take my position as the leader. I can no longer ignore my father's legacy. Besides, those bastards don't deserve it. A spark of excitement appeared in Rias' eyes as he spoke up. Endrick, I'm coming with you. I want to go on missions outside Earth. Endrick turned to him, his expression serious. Ria, it's going to be dangerous. We're going after a time candidate. There's no telling what we might encounter. Rias' resolve was unwavering. I know, but I'm ready for it. The group fell silent, the weight of their decisions hanging in the air. They had been through so much together, and now it was time for some to go their separate ways pending Gustav's return. Endrik suddenly cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. Listen, everyone. We need to be prepared for Gustav's return. When he comes back, a battle line will be drawn. We have to be ready for whatever challenges lie ahead. He furrowed his brows. A battle line? What do you mean, Endrik? Endrik met his gaze with a serious expression. Gustav's return will mark the beginning of a new conflict. I believe it will be at a time where he is ready to face them head-on. We must be ready to stand with him. The fourth premonition is only a few months away. Angie had a perturbed expression. What if Gustav doesn't return in time? What do we do then? Endrik took a deep breath. If Gustav hasn't returned by then, it will be up to us to prevent the devastation. We must be prepared for anything. Chapter 1540 Preparing for Future War. 1540 Preparing for Future War Author's Note. Unedited. Chapter Ealdris addressed the group. We have our individual paths to follow, but our ultimate goal is the same. We must stay connected and be ready to support each other when the time comes. We've been through a lot together. No matter where we go or what we face, we are family. Stay safe, everyone. We'll meet again, Endrik stated. Take care, everyone. I'll see you when I see you, Falco added. Be careful out there. Do come back safely, Angie said to Endrik. Clapped Endrik on the shoulder. Keep in touch, all right? The group told one another goodbye and got ready to part ways. Rhea grinned in excitement. Let's go, Endrik. Adventure awaits. You know, it's not all going to be that simple, right? Endrik had to remind Rhea that it was going to be dangerous. With their farewells said, the group began to disperse. Falco turned to head back to Earth, his mind already on the reunion with his father. Angie prepared to return to the MBO, and he was ready to head back to the Independent Council. They could only hope for Gustav's safe return. Ealdris set off to take his rightful place as the leader of his family. Endrik and Rhea set off together in Gustav's spacecraft. This mission is important. The outworldly needs all of his sacred items. Rhea nodded. I understand, Endrik. I intend to take it seriously. In a high-tech laboratory on a secluded part of Earth, the air buzzed with the soft whir of advanced machinery and the faint crackle of static from numerous holographic projections. The room was large and filled with gleaming surfaces, as well as an intricate array of scientific instruments. Holograms of molecular structures, energy fields, and biomechanical blueprints floated in the air, casting a soft blue glow over the metallic walls. Grand Commander Cheyenne, an elderly but authoritative-looking man with a mane of silver hair and a diamond shard embedded in his forehead, stood at the center of this laboratory. His silvery eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail with an unreadable expression. Beside him was Scientist Merkel, a slim man with sharp features and intense, intelligent eyes that seemed to see beyond the present. Merkel, Cheyenne began with a resonant and commanding tone. You mentioned a breakthrough in your research regarding the dark plane. I'm eager to hear the details. Scientist Merkel nodded with a spark of excitement in his eyes. Indeed, Grand Commander Cheyenne, we have made significant progress. Our research team has been working tirelessly, and we've developed 2 new methods that could change the tide in our struggle against the dark plane. Grand Commander Cheyenne's expression remained stern, though his interest was piqued. Go on. Merkel gestured to a nearby holographic display, which shifted to show a complex energy diagram. The first method involves stabilizing our soldiers' strength while they're in the dark plane. As you know, the dark plane has a debilitating effect on our forces, weakening them significantly. We've discovered a way to counteract this effect, allowing our soldiers to maintain their regular strength levels despite the plane's influence. Grand Commander Cheyenne nodded while absorbing the information. That is indeed promising. But you mentioned a second method as well. Scientist Merkel's eyes gleamed with a mixture of excitement and caution. Yes, the second method is even more revolutionary. We've found a way to harness the Dark Plane's unique energy fields to amplify our soldiers' strength to unprecedented levels. By tapping into the Dark Plane's latent power, we can significantly enhance their abilities, potentially giving us a decisive advantage. However, that isn't all. This second method is also more complex because this technique harnesses energy from both the Dark Plane and the future potential of the mixed blood soldiers. The result is a dramatic amplification of their strength, multiplying their capabilities many times over. Cheyenne raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. Amplifying their strength sounds like a significant advantage. Why not focus solely on that? Merkel sighed, knowing the difficult truth he had to convey. While the amplification method offers immense power, it comes with severe risks. The Dark Plane's energy is highly volatile and unpredictable. By tapping into their future selves, the soldiers effectively accelerate their life force consumption. After the battle, they are likely to perish due to the immense strain on their bodies and minds. Cheyenne's eyes narrowed, considering the implications. I see. So, the first method provides stability and safety, while the second offers power but with greater risks. Exactly, Merkel affirmed. We must weigh the benefits against the potential dangers. While the amplification method could give us a critical edge in battle, we must be cautious in its application. A heavy silence settled over the room as Grand Commander Cheyenne absorbed the gravity of Merkel's words. So, if we pick the amplification method, we're asking our soldiers to make the ultimate sacrifice, Cheyenne said slowly with a heavy voice. Yet, if we're not ready to put everything on the line, we risk losing the battle entirely. Merkel nodded with a resolute expression. Cheyenne's gaze was intense as he considered the options. This is a difficult decision, but one we must make with clear eyes. We cannot afford to lose this battle. Focus your efforts on refining the amplification method. We need to ensure it is as effective and safe as possible under the circumstances. Merkel met Cheyenne's gaze, understanding the gravity of the command. I will prioritize the amplification method. Our team will work tirelessly to perfect it. With your permission, we will begin advanced trials immediately. You have my permission. How soon can we expect results? Grand Commander Cheyenne inquired. Merkel considered the timeline, already calculating the necessary steps. If all goes well, we should have preliminary results within the next few weeks. Well, start with controlled simulations and move to live trials as soon as we are confident in the process. Cheyenne's expression softened slightly, showing a rare moment of empathy. Remember, Merkel, these are not just soldiers. They are our people, the live blood of the future generation. Ensure that every precaution is taken to protect them, even as we push forward. Merkel placed a reassuring hand on Cheyenne's arm. I understand, Grand Commander. We will do everything in our power to safeguard their lives and honor their sacrifices. Grand Commander Cheyenne nodded, a rare smile touching his lips. Good. Keep me informed of your progress. The fate of our forces, and perhaps even the fate of Earth and the entire universe, rests on our ability to navigate these challenges. With a final nod, Grand Commander Cheyenne turned and left the laboratory. His mind was already shifting to the broader strategic implications of their work and how he would break the news to the other Grand Commanders. Merkel watched him go, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The lab buzzed with a renewed sense of urgency as scientist Merkel briefed his team, outlining the critical steps needed to advance their research. The following days were a blur of intense activity. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, their focus on perfecting the amplification method. The air was filled with the vibrations of advanced machinery, the flicker of holographic displays, and the quiet murmur of intense discussions. Grand Commander Cheyenne visited frequently to observe the simulations, review data, and provided guidance. His authoritative demeanor inspired confidence and determination in the team. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows over the secluded facility, Cheyenne and Merkel stood before a large holographic projection displaying the latest data from the trials. The screen showed a detailed analysis of the energy flow, the physiological impacts on the soldiers, and the projected outcomes of the amplification process. "Merkel, these preliminary results look promising," Grand Commander Cheyenne remarked as his eyes scanned the data. "But we must be absolutely certain before we move to live trials. The stakes are too high for any margin of error." Merkel nodded with a serious expression. "I agree, Grand Commander. We've seen significant improvements in the simulations, but we need to ensure the process is as stable as possible. We're conducting rigorous stress tests and refining the energy transfer protocols to minimize the risks." Cheyenne's gaze was intense. "And the soldiers? Have you identified those willing to undergo the trials?" "Yes," Merkel replied. "We've carefully selected volunteers who understand the risks and are prepared to make the sacrifice if necessary. They are some of our most dedicated and courageous individuals." Cheyenne had a slightly sentimental look in his eyes. "Their bravery will not be forgotten. Ensure that they are given every support and preparation needed. They must be ready in mind and body. We will do everything we can to honor their commitment and protect their lives," Merkel stated. The days turned into weeks, and the trials progressed with increasing success. The team fine-tuned the amplification process, addressing each challenge with meticulous attention to detail. The volunteers underwent rigorous training, both physical and psychological, preparing themselves for the immense task ahead. Chapter 1541 Amplification Progress. 1541 Amplification Progress. Author's Note. Unedited chapter within the laboratory. Holographic projections filled the space, displaying streams of data, complex energy diagrams, and molecular structures. Grand Commander Cheyenne stood with an imposing look with his silver hair and the diamond shard embedded in his forehead before scientist Merkel. Merkel's intense eyes adjusted the holographic display to show the latest findings. "Grand Commander, based on our current progress, the amplification method should be ready for implementation in a few weeks. We've made significant strides in stabilizing the energy transfer and minimizing the risks." Cheyenne nodded thoughtfully, his eyes scanning the detailed data before him. "Excellent work, Merkel. This breakthrough could be pivotal in our struggle against the Dark Plane." Merkel's expression was resolute. "But still we must tread carefully, Grand Commander. I can only hope the training and psychological preparation for our soldiers yield results. Indeed, we must balance the need for power with the imperative of safety. I will inform the other 4 Grand Commanders of our progress. Together, we will decide the next steps for the future of Earth and the universe as a whole," Grand Commander Cheyenne stated. "I will continue to refine the process and ensure that everything is ready for the trials," Scientist Merkel responded. As Cheyenne turned to leave the laboratory, a sudden gust of wind swept through the room. The winds of ominosity. As he reached a private area, Grand Commander Cheyenne activated the secure link to the other Grand Commanders. Holographic images of 4 distinguished figures appeared before him, each one representing a pillar of strength and leadership. "Grand Commanders," Cheyenne began, his voice carrying the weight of their collective responsibility, "I have urgent updates regarding our efforts against the Dark Plane. Scientist Merkel and his team have made significant progress with the amplification method. It should be ready for implementation in a few weeks." Grand Commander Alara, a formidable-looking woman with green eyes and a calm demeanor, nodded. "This is indeed promising news, Grand Commander Cheyenne. The amplification of our soldiers' strength could turn the tide in our favor." Another Grand Commander leaned forward with a stern expression. What about the risks involved, Grand Commander Cheyenne? We cannot afford to proceed without understanding the full implications. There is no sugarcoating it. It's dangerous and can lead to their demise. The amplification method draws power from both the dark plane and the future potential of our mixed blood soldiers. While it offers immense strength, it is also highly taxing. Prolonged use could result in the death of the soldiers involved. Only those willing to make the ultimate sacrifice would be considered for this task. Grand Commander Zoran, an elderly man with a wise and contemplative air, spoke up. We must be cautious. The balance of power and safety is delicate. What measures are in place to ensure our soldiers are adequately prepared? Merkel is refining the process and implementing rigorous training and psychological preparation. Volunteers will be the first to give it a try, so we may know what step to take next. If our soldiers are to make such sacrifices, we need to ensure it is for a decisive victory. We cannot afford to squander their lives, another Grand Commander stated. Cheyenne's gaze was steady. I agree. This is why we must coordinate our efforts and plan our next steps carefully. The decision we make here will shape the future of Earth and the universe. The holographic images of the Grand Commanders flickered slightly. After a moment of silence, Alara spoke with a resolute tone. We will convene again once the trials are complete to decide on the deployment. Cheyenne nodded. I will keep you all updated. As the communication ended, Cheyenne stood in the quiet room with an indescribable expression. The winds of foreboding seemed to whisper through the walls. Returning to the laboratory, Cheyenne found Merkel and his team deep in their work. He approached Merkel, his presence commanding attention. Merkel, the other Grand Commanders are informed. We have their support, but we must proceed with caution. Merkel nodded. We will not falter. Our efforts will be thorough and precise. They proceeded with their work in the laboratory, conducting simulations and stress tests to ensure stability and safety. The first selected volunteers underwent rigorous training, their resolve unwavering in the face of the immense task ahead. One evening, as the final preparations were underway, Cheyenne gathered the team for a briefing. The room was filled with anticipation and determination. Holographic displays flickered with the latest data, casting a soft glow over the faces of those present. Everyone, Cheyenne began, his voice resonating with authority, we stand on the brink of a new era. The work you have done here is nothing short of remarkable. The time has come to take the next step. He turned to the volunteers. You are the best of us. Your courage and dedication are an inspiration. As you prepare to engage in these trials, know that you carry the hopes and strength of all of us. We are with you every step of the way. The volunteers stood tall, their faces reflecting a mix of pride and determination. One of them, a young woman named Kira, spoke. We know the risks, sir, and we accept them. For our people, for our future, we will do whatever it takes. Cheyenne nodded while smiling. Thank you, Kira. Your bravery honors us all. As the volunteers prepared for the trials, the laboratory buzzed with activity. Final checks were made, systems calibrated, and the amplification process initiated. The moment arrived, and the volunteers stepped into the controlled environment for the trials. The lab fell silent, every eye fixed on the holographic displays, tracking their progress. Seconds turned into minutes, each one filled with anticipation and anxiety. The data streams fluctuated, reflecting the intense energy transfer and the physical toll on the volunteers. Back on the desolate planet Humbad, the journey down the chasm had been arduous for Gustav and Miss Amy. The days stretched into a week, each one filled with the oppressive heat and the constant vigilance required to navigate the treacherous path. The walls of the chasm were lined with jagged rocks and strange, glowing symbols that seemed to pulsate with an eerie energy. The scent of sulfur drizzled across the air, and the distant rumble of magma pits provided a constant, ominous soundtrack to their descent. "We've been descending for so long," Gustav remarked, with a slightly distraught look. "Are we ever going to reach the bottom?" Miss Amy nodded. "We're getting close, but it appears the bottom isn't what we expected. Look." Gustav followed her gaze and saw the chasm's floor ahead, but it was covered in a bubbling, magma-like liquid. Pillars of rock protruded from the molten surface, creating a dangerous and unpredictable terrain. The red glow from the magma illuminated the entire area, casting long, flickering shadows on the rocky walls. "Be careful," Miss Amy cautioned. "I'm sure it'll be fine. I just wish we could move faster." Gustav let out a little sigh. They moved carefully with deliberate and measured steps. The heat from the magma had risen to unprecedented heights, but they were still okay. The rocky pillars provided some stability, but they had to be cautious, testing each foothold before putting their weight on it. 10, 28 as they continued. The sights around them became more intricate. Debris from what looked like ancient structures lay scattered across the chasm, remnants of a civilization long gone. The pillars of rock protruding from the magma reminded him of a twisted, otherworldly landscape, like something out of a nightmare. "Do you think this place was once inhabited?" Gustav asked, his voice echoing slightly in the vast chasm. Miss Amy nodded. "It's possible. If Dimension 6 was always located here, then it makes sense for the surroundings to have been formerly inhabited." They continued their cautious descent as the heat kept intensifying. After what felt like an eternity, they finally reached a relatively stable area near the bottom. The magma-like liquid was still everywhere, but there were enough solid footholds to navigate without stepping directly into it. "I don't see much roads to move on," he said to Miss Amy, eyes scanning the area for a safe path. "Just keep following me." They moved carefully, testing each step before committing to it. The bubbling magma hissed and popped around them, the heat radiating off the surface in waves. After days of navigating the treacherous chasm, Gustav and Miss Amy finally reached what appeared to be the real bottom. The landscape before them was a vast expanse of bubbling, magma-like liquid stretching across thousands of miles, glowing with a malevolent red hue. The entire scene was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Gustav was almost completely stark naked at this point. Inasmuch as he would have loved to take out another attire from his spatial storage space, using any form of energy could cause problems. Gustav stopped at the edge, staring out over the molten expanse. "We can't move any further," his voice tinged with frustration. "How are we supposed to find anything down here?" Chapter 1542 Entry Point Hindrance. Chapter 1542 Entry Point Hindrance. Author's note. Unedited chapter. Miss Amy didn't respond immediately. Instead, she continued walking forward with confident and deliberate strides. Gustav watched in surprise as the magma-like liquid began to part before her, creating a narrow path through the molten sea. Gustav's eyes widened in astonishment. "Miss Amy, what are you doing? I thought you said not to use abilities." Miss Amy glanced back at him with a calm smile on her face. "Gustav, I am a transcendent being. My abilities won't affect the integrity of this planet's fragile core. I can create a path for us." Gustav hesitated for a moment before following her, carefully stepping onto the newly formed path. The heat radiating from the magma was intense, but the path Miss Amy created was cool and solid under his feet. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Gustav asked as they walked, his voice a mixture of relief and curiosity. Miss Amy's smile widened. "I wanted you to see the magnitude of what we are dealing with. Sometimes experiencing the journey firsthand is the best way to understand the challenges we face." Gustav nodded, absorbing her words. "So where are we headed now?" "To the heart of this place," Miss Amy replied. "The path will lead us to it." They continued walking, the path winding through the sea of molten liquid. The glowing magma cast eerie shadows on the cavern walls, creating a surreal and otherworldly atmosphere. Gustav couldn't help but marvel at the sight, even as he remained vigilant for any signs of danger. As they walked, Gustav's mind raced with questions. "Miss Amy, what exactly are we looking for down here?" "We'll know when we see it," Miss Amy answered. Gustav was just curious as to what to look out for, but it seemed like Miss Amy wasn't too sure herself. As Gustav and Miss Amy continued their journey forward, the magma-like liquid continued to part before them, creating a pathway that snaked through the vast expanse of molten rock. The walls of magma rose on either side, forming a corridor that shimmered with intense heat and light. Despite the treacherous surroundings, Gustav felt a sense of calm. His trust in Miss Amy's abilities were unwavering. They walked in silence for what seemed like hours, the only sounds being the bubbling of the magma and the soft tap of their own footsteps. The path beneath their feet gradually began to change, shifting from the rough, uneven surface of the chasm to something more refined and constructed. The ground took on a smoother texture, and intricate patterns began to emerge, etched into the very rock itself. Gustav paused, glancing around in awe. "The ground here, it's unscathed." Miss Amy nodded. "Yes, kiddo, we're getting closer." As they continued, the refined ground gave way to an expansive platform that stretched out before them. It was incredibly large, its surface unscathed by the surrounding magma. The platform's structure was nearly indescribable. It was a blend of intricate patterns and futuristic designs that seemed both ancient and advanced. At the center of the platform stood a structure that seemed to defy the very fabric of reality. It was both in time and out of time, a paradoxical blend of past and future. Various technological constructs adorned its surface, their designs sleek and incredibly advanced. Holographic interfaces flickered with streams of data, and strange, glowing symbols adorned the walls. Gustav's eyes widened in astonishment. "Is this it?" Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with a sense of reverence. "Yes, Gustav, this is Dimension 6. Gustav stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the structure. Dimension 6. At last. However, Gustav couldn't see the system notification alert that he had completed the second 5 years quest just yet. He figured that he probably needed to get in first. The knowledge and power contained here will help you understand your origins. Prepare yourself, Gustav. What you'll find in there will be beyond your current imagination. Bet. Gustav mumbled. They approached the structure. The air around them thrummed with energy. Gustav could feel the power radiating from the platform, a tangible force that seemed to resonate with his very being. The intricate patterns on the ground pulsed with light, guiding their steps toward the heart of Dimension 6. Miss Amy and Gustav reached the entry point of Dimension 6, only to find themselves unable to proceed. An invisible force seemed to push them back, preventing any further movement. The air around them thrummed with a strange energy, and the very fabric of reality seemed to shimmer and distort. Gustav frowned as his brows furrowed. "Is there some sort of code for access?" Miss Amy's eyes scanned the surroundings. "Let's look around. The answers are often hidden in plain sight." Gustav turned his attention to the walls around them, noticing for the intricate, artistic depictions that adorned the stone. The carvings were beautiful and elaborate, telling a story through a series of images and symbols. He moved closer, examining them with keen interest. "These carvings, they tell a tale," Gustav said, his voice filled with wonder. "It's about the creation and access to Dimension 6. Miss Amy nodded, joining him in examining the depictions. "Looks like the Slarkovs recorded some of their history and knowledge through art. Let's see what we can learn." As they studied the carvings, the story began to unfold. The first series of images showed a group of beings, presumably the Slarkovs, standing before a darkened sky. Then a drop of something that looked like a water, but certainly wasn't water, fell to the ground. The ground caved in and some impossible structures came into existence. That was Dimension 6. A place depicted as a realm of infinite possibilities, where wishes could be granted and resources were abundant. Oh, Gustav mused. It was like a paradise, a realm where anything was possible. Miss Amy pointed to the next set of images. But look here. The dimension seemed to have demanded something in return. The images showed a series of warnings, depicted through symbolic representations. The message was clear. The dimension would grant anything you needed, but greed would be met with severe punishment. The final images were grim, showing individuals who had ignored the warnings being met with gruesome fates. So the dimension punishes greed, Gustav said slowly. It only grants what you need, not what you want. Those who are greedy faced dire consequences. Miss Amy's expression was serious. It looks like the power of Dimension 6 is immense, but it wishes to be respected. It possesses sentience. We must be mindful of our intentions. Gustav nodded. There must be a way to pass this barrier. We must be something we're missing. They continued to examine the carvings, looking for any clues that might help them. Gustav's eyes fell on a small, almost hidden depiction near the bottom of one of the walls. It showed a figure getting something, and afterwards getting pushed out. After the depictions, the images seemed to display some changes. People trying to get in, but being unable to. There is no access. It's locked. Forever. Gustav came to this realization. If the dimension had been in existence since before the planet got pulled into the stagnant Siderus void, there was no doubt that it had been locked for centuries already. What were they supposed to do about that? There has to be some sort of way to get in, Gustav said while moving around. He went around again and scanned the surroundings multiple times, but still came up blank. It looked like Dimension 6 was thoroughly sealed without no form of entry. Did that mean coming here was for naught? He couldn't possibly let it end here now that they had reached this pivotal point. Miss Amy, can I use my abilities now? Gustav inquired. Yes, sure. Dimension 6 blankets the surroundings, so the planet's core will be even before Miss Amy could answer completely. Boom! Gustav had thrown a fist at the invisible barrier preventing them from moving any further. I don't think that's gonna. Before Miss Amy could caution him again. Boom! Gustav's fist rammed into it once more, causing the surroundings to tremble immensely. Despite the amount of strength Gustav put into his fists, they were unable to punch a hole through whatever was hindering them. He arched his arm back intensely, letting his energy climb to ridiculous levels as he prepared to strike again. Miss Amy's hair and clothes flapped intensely as the air crackled. He has really grown. She couldn't help but smile as she watched him from the side. Boom! Gustav's fist drove into the hindrance, causing a devastating clash to ring out as torrents of wind swept across the surroundings. Even the magma in the surroundings were affected by this, causing a storm of steam to erupt. After a couple of seconds, the steam slowly reduced, and the hindering invisible wall remained unmoving. Even the ground beneath their feet didn't crack from Gustav's intensity. There was no doubt that Dimension 6 power was astronomical. Kohila. Gustav called forth as rhombus-shaped patterns of light surrounded his form. Chapter 1543, Reaching Dimension 6. Chapter 1543, Reaching Dimension 6, Author's Note. Unedited. Chapter. Gustav stared at the structure, his eyes wide with awe. What is that? Miss Amy's eyes were filled with wonder. It looks like some kind of temple or shrine. This must be the heart of the chasm, where the answers we seek are hidden. They carefully made their way towards the structure, using the rocky pillars and ledges to navigate the treacherous terrain. As they approached, Gustav could see that the structure was covered in intricate carvings and symbols, similar to those they had seen on the walls of the chasm. "This place is incredible," Gustav said, his voice filled with awe. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Miss Amy nodded, her eyes scanning the carvings. "These symbols, they tell a story. We need to decipher them to understand what happened here." They carefully examined the carvings, their eyes tracing the intricate designs and patterns. The symbols seemed to depict a history of the Slarkovs, their rise to power and their eventual fall. Gustav felt a shiver run down his spine as he realized the significance of what they were seeing. "This is it," Gustav said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is the key to understanding my past." Miss Amy nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We need to be thorough. Let's document everything we can and try to piece together the story." They spent hours carefully examining the carvings, documenting every detail. The story they uncovered was one of power, ambition, and ultimately tragedy. The Slarkovs had been a powerful civilization, but their hubris had led to their downfall. The warp demolator had dragged their planet into the stagnant, Siderus void, and they had fled to Earth in a desperate bid for survival. "This is incredible," Gustav said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and sadness. They were so powerful, but they couldn't escape their fate. Miss Amy placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "The past is filled with lessons. We must learn from them and use that knowledge to shape our future." Gustav nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "You're right. We need to take this information back and use it to understand the connection to my past and the challenges we face." As they continued their exploration of the ancient structure, Gustav couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the sheer scale of the place. The carvings and symbols told a story that spanned centuries, a testament to the power and ambition of the Slarkovs. "Miss Amy," Gustav said, his voice filled with determination, "we need to make sure this knowledge isn't lost. We need to document everything and take it back with us." Miss Amy nodded, her eyes filled with resolve. "Agreed. This information is too important. We must ensure it is preserved and used to guide our future." As they carefully documented the carvings and symbols, Gustav felt a sense of connection to the ancient civilization. The Slarkovs had been powerful, but their ambition had led to their downfall. He vowed to learn from their mistakes and use the knowledge they had uncovered to shape a better future. After hours of careful documentation, they finally had a comprehensive record of the carvings and symbols. Exhausted, but satisfied, they made their way back to the solid ledge overlooking the chasm. "We did it," Gustav said, his voice filled with a mix of relief and accomplishment. "We uncovered the truth." Miss Amy nodded, her eyes filled with pride. "Yes, we did. Now we must use this knowledge to guide us forward." As they began their ascent back up the chasm, Gustav felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey had been long and arduous, but they had uncovered the secrets of the past and gained the knowledge they needed to face the challenges ahead. The climb back up was just as treacherous as the descent, but Gustav and Miss Amy moved with a sense of determination and resolve. They navigated the rocky pillars and ledges with care, avoiding the bubbling magma below. As they reached the upper levels of the chasm, Gustav couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the journey they had undertaken. They had descended into the depths of the planet and uncovered the secrets of an ancient civilization. The knowledge they had gained would guide them in the challenges ahead. Finally, after days of climbing, they reached the top of the chasm. Exhausted but triumphant, they looked out over the desolate landscape of planet Humbad. "We did it," Gustav said, his voice filled with pride. "We uncovered the truth and made it back." Miss Amy nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "Yes, we did. And now we must use this knowledge to face the challenges ahead and shape a better future." As they began their journey back to their base, Gustav felt a renewed sense of purpose. The The knowledge they had gained from the depths of the chasm would guide them in the battles ahead, and he was determined to use it to create a better future for himself and those he cared about. The journey had been long and arduous, but the knowledge they had uncovered was invaluable. As they made their way back across the desolate landscape, after days of navigating the treacherous chasm, Gustav and Miss Amy finally reached what appeared to be the real bottom. The landscape before them was a vast expanse of bubbling, magma-like liquid stretching across thousands of miles, glowing with a malevolent red hue. The heat was intense, and the air was thick with the smell of sulfur. The entire scene was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a stark reminder of the planet's volatile nature. Gustav stopped at the edge, staring out over the molten expanse. "We can't move any further," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "How are we supposed to find anything down here?" Miss Amy didn't respond immediately. Instead, she continued walking forward, her steps confident and deliberate. Gustav watched in surprise as the magma-like liquid began to part before her, creating a narrow path through the molten sea. Gustav's eyes widened in astonishment. "Miss Amy, what are you doing? I thought you said not to use abilities." Miss Amy glanced back at him, a calm smile on her face. "Gustav, I am a transcendent being. My abilities won't affect the integrity of this planet's fragile core. I can create a path for us." Gustav hesitated for a moment before following her, carefully stepping onto the newly formed path. The heat radiating from the magma was intense, but the path Miss Amy created was cool and solid under his feet. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Gustav asked as they walked, his voice a mixture of relief and curiosity. Miss Amy's smile widened. "I wanted you to see the magnitude of what we are dealing with. Sometimes experiencing the journey firsthand is the best way to understand the challenges we face." Gustav nodded, absorbing her words. "So, where are we headed now?" "To the heart of this place," Miss Amy replied. "There is something here that holds the answers we seek. The path will lead us to it." They continued walking, the path winding through the sea of molten liquid. The glowing magma cast eerie shadows on the cavern walls, creating a surreal and otherworldly atmosphere. Gustav couldn't help but marvel at the sight, even as he remained vigilant for any signs of danger. As they walked, Gustav's mind raced with questions. "Miss Amy, what exactly are we looking for down here?" "There's a chamber deep within this chasm," she explained. "It holds ancient knowledge and artifacts that can help us understand the connection between you and the Slarkovs. It is also the key to unlocking the power you possess." Gustav's curiosity deepened. "And this chamber, it's been here for how long?" "Centuries, perhaps millennia," Miss Amy said. "The Slarkovs were a powerful civilization, and they left behind many secrets. This is one of their most guarded locations." As they continued down the path, Gustav noticed that the air seemed to grow cooler, and the light from the magma dimmed slightly. They were approaching a massive, ancient structure embedded in the cavern wall. It was covered in intricate carvings and symbols, similar to those they had seen earlier, but far more elaborate. "This is it," Miss Amy said, stopping before the structure, the entrance to the chamber. Gustav stared at the structure, awe and apprehension mixing in his expression. "What do we need to do to get inside?" Miss Amy placed her hand on the carvings, and they began to glow with a soft blue light. The ground beneath them rumbled, and a hidden door slowly slid open, revealing a dark passageway. "Follow me," Miss Amy said, stepping into the passageway. Gustav took a deep breath and followed her, the door closing behind them. The passageway was dimly lit by the same blue glow from the carvings, casting an ethereal light on the walls. As they moved deeper, the air grew cooler and the rumbling of the magma receded, replaced by an almost tangible sense of ancient power. "Miss Amy," Gustav said quietly, What exactly will we find in this chamber? Knowledge, she replied, and power. The Slarkovs left behind many artifacts that can help you understand your heritage and unlock your potential. But be prepared, Gustav. The journey ahead will not be easy. Gustav nodded, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. As they reached the end of the passageway, they entered a vast chamber filled with towering columns and ancient relics. The walls were covered in more of the glowing carvings, and the air was thick with the sense of history and power. Chapter 1540 for the Sacrifice. 1540 for the Sacrifice, author's note. Unedited chapter at the center of the chamber was a large pedestal, upon which rested a crystalline structure that pulsed with a soft blue light. Gustav felt a strange pull towards it, as if it was calling to him. "This is the heart of the Humbad," Miss Amy said, her voice reverent. "It contains the knowledge and power of their civilization. Touch it, Gustav. It will reveal the truths you seek." Gustav hesitated for a moment before stepping forward, his hand reaching out to touch the crystal. The moment his skin made contact, a surge of energy coursed through him, and his vision blurred. Images and sounds flooded his mind, a torrent of information that was almost overwhelming. They spent the next several hours exploring the chamber, studying the ancient artifacts and deciphering the glowing carvings. Gustav felt a growing sense of connection to the Slarkovs, each discovery deepening his understanding of his heritage and his potential. At one point, Gustav found a small, intricately carved box. As he opened it, a holographic projection emerged, displaying a detailed map of the Slarkovs' ancient cities and their journey to Earth. He traced the path with his finger, feeling a deep sense of connection to the history it represented. "This is incredible," Gustav said, his voice filled with wonder. "It's like a piece of my past coming to life." Miss Amy nodded, her expression thoughtful. The Slarkovs were a powerful civilization, but their ambition led to their downfall. We must learn from their mistakes and use this knowledge to guide our future. As they continued their exploration, Gustav found another artifact, a small, metallic device with intricate engravings. As he examined it, the device began to glow, and a holographic interface appeared. "This must be some kind of data storage," Gustav said, his fingers moving over the holographic controls. "It looks like it contains records of their technology and experiments." Miss Amy watched as Gustav navigated the interface, her eyes filled with a mix of pride and concern. "Be careful, Gustav. The knowledge contained here is powerful, but it can also be dangerous." Gustav nodded, his focus unwavering. "I understand, but we need this information if we're going to unlock my potential and face the challenges ahead." Hours turned into days as they delved deeper into the chamber's secrets. Gustav felt a growing sense of empowerment as he uncovered more about his heritage and his abilities. The journey was challenging, but each discovery brought him closer to understanding his true potential. Finally, after days of intense study and exploration, Gustav and Miss Amy emerged from the chamber, their minds filled with the knowledge they had gained. The path before them was still fraught with challenges, but they were ready to face them with renewed determination and purpose. As they stood at the edge of the magma sea, Gustav looked out over the desolate landscape of planet Humbad, feeling a deep sense of connection to his past and a burning resolve to shape his future. "Thank you, Miss Amy," Gustav said, his voice filled with gratitude, "for guiding me and helping me uncover the truth." Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "You have always had the strength within you, Gustav." As Gustav and Miss Amy continued their journey forward, the magma-like liquid continued to part before them, creating a pathway that snaked through the vast expanse of molten rock. The walls of magma rose on either side, forming a corridor that shimmered with intense heat and light. Despite the treacherous surroundings, Gustav felt a sense of calm and determination, his trust in Miss Amy's abilities unwavering. They walked in silence for what seemed like hours, the only sounds being the bubbling of the magma and the soft hum of their own footsteps. The path beneath their feet gradually began to change, shifting from the rough, uneven surface of the chasm to something more refined and constructed. The ground took on a smoother texture, and intricate patterns began to emerge, etched into the very rock itself. Gustav paused, glancing around in awe. "Miss Amy, do you see this? The ground, it's changing." Miss Amy nodded, her expression one of calm assurance. "Yes, Gustav, we're getting closer." The ancient architects of this place left their mark, guiding us toward our destination. As they continued, the refined ground gave way to an expansive platform that stretched out before them. It was incredibly large, its surface unscathed by the surrounding magma. The platform structure was nearly indescribable, a blend of intricate patterns and futuristic designs that seemed both ancient and advanced. At the center of the platform stood a structure that seemed to defy the very fabric of reality. It was both in time and out of time, a paradoxical blend of past and future. Various technological constructs adorned its surface, their designs sleek and incredibly advanced. Holographic interfaces flickered with streams of data, and strange, glowing symbols adorned the walls. Gustav's eyes widened in astonishment. "What is this place? It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with a sense of reverence. "This, Gustav, is Dimension 6. It is a nexus of time and reality, a place where the boundaries of existence blur and the truths of the universe are laid bare." Gustav stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the structure. "Dimension 6. This is where I'll find the answers, isn't it?" "Yes," Miss Amy replied. "The knowledge and power contained here will help you understand your heritage and unlock your true potential. But be prepared, Gustav. This place is unlike anything you've ever encountered." They approached the structure, the air around them humming with energy. Gustav could feel the power radiating from the platform, a tangible force that seemed to resonate with his very being. The intricate patterns on the ground pulsed with light, guiding their steps toward the heart of Dimension 6. "Miss Amy," Gustav said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and apprehension, "what exactly will we find here?" "Knowledge," Miss Amy replied, "and power. The Slarkovs left behind many artifacts and records that can help you understand your heritage and unlock your potential. But it will not be easy. The journey ahead will be filled with challenges, both physical and mental." As they reached the center of the platform, a large, circular doorway opened before them, revealing a chamber filled with a soft, blue light. The air inside was cool and refreshing, a stark contrast to the intense heat of the magma outside. Gustav took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm wash over him. "This is it," Miss Amy said, stepping through the doorway. "The heart of Dimension 6. Gustav followed her into the chamber, his eyes wide with wonder. The room was filled with an array of advanced technology, from holographic interfaces to intricate machines that seemed to pulse with life. Strange symbols adorned the walls, their meanings elusive yet tantalizing. At the center of the chamber was a large, crystalline structure that pulsed with a soft, blue light. Gustav felt a strange pull towards it, as if it was calling to him. "This is the core of Dimension 6, Miss Amy explained. It contains the knowledge and power of the Slarkovs. Touch it, Gustav. It will reveal the truths you seek." Gustav hesitated for a moment before stepping forward, his hand reaching out to touch the crystal. The moment his skin made contact, a surge of energy coursed through him, and his vision blurred. Images and sounds flooded his mind, a torrent of information that was almost overwhelming. He saw the rise of the Slarkovs, their advanced technology, and their ambitious conquests. He witnessed their discovery of the warp demolator and their desperate attempts to prevent the catastrophe that would drag their world into the stagnant, Siderus void. He saw their decision to flee to Earth, and the measures they took to ensure their survival. And then he saw something that took his breath away, scenes of his own life, interwoven with the history of the Slarkovs. He saw himself as a child, subtly influenced by Slarkov technology. He saw his parents, who were not his biological parents, but caretakers assigned to protect and guide him. Gustav staggered back, his mind reeling from the revelations. I am connected to the Slarkovs. But how? Miss Amy placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. You were part of their last-ditch effort to preserve their legacy. They sent a few of their children to Earth, disguised as human, hoping they would survive and one day reclaim their heritage. Gustav's head spun with the implications. So, am one of them? Yes, Miss Amy confirmed gently. Your true origin lies with the Slarkovs. That's why you're so important. You carry their legacy within you. Gustav took a deep breath, trying to process everything he had learned. And this chamber, it holds the key to unlocking my potential. Yes, Miss Amy said. The knowledge and power contained here will help you understand your heritage and unlock your true abilities. But it will not be easy. The journey ahead will be filled with challenges, both physical and mental. Gustav nodded, feeling a mix of awe and determination. I'm ready. Whatever it takes, I want to understand my past and unlock my potential. Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with pride. I knew you would. Let's begin. They spent the next several hours exploring the chamber, studying the ancient artifacts and deciphering the glowing symbols. Gustav felt a growing sense of connection to the Slarkovs, each discovery deepening his understanding of his heritage and his potential. At one point, Gustav found a small, intricately carved box. As he opened it, a holographic projection emerged, displaying a detailed map of the Slarkovs' ancient cities and their journey to Earth. He traced the path with his finger, feeling a deep sense of connection to the history it represented. Chapter 1545 True Nature of Dimension 6. Chapter 1545 True Nature of Dimension 6. Author's Note. Unedited, chapter The realization that this powerful tool came at the ultimate price left a bitter taste in their mouths. The previously enthusiastic dignitary with shimmering scales was the first to break the silence. Grand Commander, this news is devastating. How can we ask our warriors to make such a sacrifice? Cheyenne nodded, his face reflecting the inner turmoil he felt. I understand your concerns. This is not a decision to be taken lightly, but we are faced with an existential threat. The beings of the Dark Plane will not show mercy, and our universe is at stake. We must weigh the cost of using this tool against the potential destruction of all we hold dear. An ethereal figure from the Mystic Enclave spoke up. We must ensure that those who choose to use this tool are fully aware of the consequences and are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. It is a heavy burden, but one that may be necessary to save countless lives. Another delegate with metallic skin and a deep, rumbling voice addressed the room. Indeed, we may have brave warriors, but we cannot simply send them to their deaths without exploring every possible alternative. Are there no other options, Grand Commander? Cheyenne took a deep breath. We are continuing our research, and we are exploring every possible avenue. But as of now, this amplification tool is our best chance to confront the Dark Plane on equal footing. We must prevent the final premonition, as these efforts are crucial to our survival. The room erupted in a mix of voices. Some agreed, while others disagreed. Grand Commander Cheyenne allowed the discussions to continue for a moment before raising his hand again. Please, everyone. I understand how difficult it is to digest what I've told you. However, we must move forward with caution and unity. We need volunteers from every planet under the Alliance who understand the stakes and are willing to make this sacrifice. We must also continue to work together to find other solutions. Our universe's survival depends on our combined efforts. SSS the delegates nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting resolve. A delegate with luminescent wings, representing the Celestial Guardians, stood. Grand Commander, our people have always been protectors of this universe. We will provide volunteers who are prepared to make this sacrifice. Their courage will not be in vain. Another delegate, a regal figure with an elaborate headdress, added, We must honor those who choose to use the amplification tool by ensuring their sacrifice is not forgotten. We will create a memorial to their bravery and dedication. Cheyenne bowed his head in gratitude. Thank you. Your support and unity give me hope. We will proceed with caution, and we will honor the sacrifices made in this struggle. Together, we will face the dark plane and protect our universe. As the meeting continued, the delegates worked together to develop a plan. They discussed how to fortify the seal, protect the Celestial Guardians, and deploy the amplification tool strategically. Each step was carefully considered, with the understanding that the stakes had never been higher. In the high-tech laboratories on Earth, scientists and engineers continued their tireless work. The air was filled with the hum of advanced machinery, the quiet murmur of intense discussions, and the occasional spark of inspiration. The amplification tool was refined, its design optimized for maximum efficiency and safety, though the ultimate cost remained. Grand Commander Cheyenne visited the laboratories frequently, his presence a constant source of strength and motivation. He spoke with the scientists and engineers, offering his insights and encouragement. He knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but he was determined to see it through. In the days and weeks that followed, progress was made. The gateway technology was refined, defenses were fortified, and reconnaissance teams were deployed to locate and protect the Celestial Guardians. The Universal Alliance stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the stars shone brightly above, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the endless possibilities that lay ahead, the Universal Alliance prepared to face the dark plane with unwavering resolve. The battle was far from over, but they were ready to fight, guided by the strength and wisdom they had gained from their shared resolve. Grand Commander Cheyenne stood at the forefront, his heart filled with determination. We will protect our universe, he vowed. We will stand together and face the darkness, and we will prevail. SSS, this is incredible, Gustav said, his voice filled with wonder. It's like a piece of my past coming to life. Miss Amy nodded, her expression thoughtful. The Slarkovs were a powerful civilization, but their ambition led to their downfall. We must learn from their mistakes and use this knowledge to guide our future. As they continued their exploration, Gustav found another artifact, a small, metallic device with intricate engravings. As he examined it, the device began to glow, and a holographic interface appeared. This must be some kind of data storage, Gustav said, his fingers moving over the holographic controls. It looks like it contains records of their technology and experiments. Miss Amy watched as Gustav navigated the interface, her eyes filled with a mix of pride and concern. Be careful, Gustav. The knowledge contained here is powerful, but it can also be dangerous. Gustav nodded, his focus unwavering. I understand, but we need this information if we're going to unlock my potential and face the challenges ahead. Hours turned into days as they delved deeper into the chamber's secrets. Gustav felt a growing sense of empowerment as he uncovered more about his heritage and his abilities. The journey was challenging, but each discovery brought him closer to understanding his true potential. Finally, after days of intense study and exploration, Gustav and Miss Amy emerged from the chamber, their minds filled with the knowledge they had gained. The path before them was still fraught with challenges, but they were ready to face them with renewed determination and purpose. As they stood at the edge of the magma sea, Gustav looked out over the desolate landscape of planet Humbad, feeling a deep sense of connection to his past and a burning resolve to shape his future. Thank you, Miss Amy, Gustav said, his voice filled with gratitude, "for guiding me and helping me uncover the truth." Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "You have always had the strength within you, Gustav. The journey ahead will be difficult, but you are ready. Let's return and share what we have learned." With a renewed sense of purpose, Gustav and Miss Amy began their journey back. The path through the magma parted once more, and they walked with determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead and use the knowledge they had gained to shape a better future. As Miss Amy and Gustav reached the entry point of Dimension 6, only to find themselves unable to proceed. An invisible force seemed to push them back, preventing any further movement. The air around them thrummed with a strange energy, and the very fabric of reality seemed to shimmer and distort. Gustav frowned, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's like we're hitting an invisible wall." "What is this?" Miss Amy's eyes scanned the surroundings, her expression thoughtful. "There must be a reason for this. Look around, Gustav. The answers are often hidden in plain sight." Gustav turned his attention to the walls around them, noticing for the first time the intricate, artistic depictions that adorned the stone. The carvings were beautiful and elaborate, telling a story through a series of images and symbols. He moved closer, examining them with keen interest. "These carvings, they tell a tale," Gustav said, his voice filled with wonder. "It's about the creation and access to Dimension 6. Miss Amy nodded, joining him in examining the depictions. Yes, the Slarkovs were known for recording their history and knowledge through art. "Let's see what we can learn." As they studied the carvings, the story began to unfold. The first series of images showed a group of beings, presumably the Slarkovs, standing before a great portal. The portal led to Dimension 6, a place depicted as a realm of infinite possibilities, where wishes could be granted and resources were abundant. This place, Dimension 6, Gustav mused, it was like a paradise, a realm where anything was possible. Miss Amy pointed to the next set of images. "But look here." The dimension demanded something in return. The images showed a series of warnings, depicted through symbolic representations. The message was clear: the dimension would grant anything you needed, but greed would be met with severe punishment. The final images were grim, showing individuals who had ignored the warnings being met with gruesome fates. "So the dimension punishes greed," Gustav said slowly. "It only grants what you need, not what you want. Those who are greedy face dire consequences." Miss Amy's expression was serious. "This is a crucial lesson, Gustav. The power of Dimension 6 is immense, but it must be respected. We must be mindful of our intentions and desires." Gustav nodded, his mind racing with the implications. "We need to figure out how to pass this barrier. There must be something we're missing." They continued to examine the carvings, looking for any clues that might help them. Gustav's eyes fell on a small, almost hidden depiction near the bottom of one of the walls. It showed a figure standing before the portal, holding out an object that seemed to glow with a soft light. "Miss Amy, look at this," Gustav said, pointing to the carving. "This figure is holding something. It looks like it's the key to accessing the dimension." Miss Amy studied the image closely. "It appears to be a token or an offering, something given in humility and need rather than in greed." Gustav thought for a moment, then reached into his bag and pulled out a small, worn trinket that had been given to him by his mother. It was a simple object, but it held great sentimental value. "I think this might be it," Gustav said, holding the trinket up. "It's something meaningful, something given in need rather than want." Miss Amy nodded. "It's worth a try. Offer it to the portal and see if it accepts." Gustav stepped forward, holding the trinket out before him. He felt a strange, tingling sensation as he approached the barrier, and the air seemed to shimmer and hum with energy. Taking a deep breath, he placed the trinket on the ground before the portal and stepped back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the trinket began to glow with a soft blue light. The invisible force holding them back seemed to waver, and the shimmering barrier began to dissolve. "It's working," Gustav said, his voice filled with awe. "The barrier is lifting." Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "You did it, Gustav. The dimension recognizes your humility and need." As the barrier dissolved completely, the path to Dimension 6 lay open before them. The air was cool and refreshing, and the soft blue light from the crystalline structures within the chamber seemed to welcome them. "Let's go," Miss Amy said, stepping forward. "The answers we seek are just ahead." Gustav followed her, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. As they stepped through the portal, they entered a realm that seemed to exist outside of time and space. The chamber was vast and filled with advanced technology, glowing symbols, and strange artifacts that pulsed with energy. "This place is incredible," Gustav said, his voice filled with wonder. "It's like stepping into another world." Miss Amy nodded, her expression serious. "Remember the lesson from the carvings, Gustav. We must respect the power of this place and approach it with humility." They moved further into the chamber, exploring the various constructs and devices. Each one seemed to hold a piece of the puzzle, a fragment of the knowledge and power that the Slarkovs had left behind. At the center of the chamber, they found another crystalline structure, similar to the one they had encountered earlier. It pulsed with a soft blue light, and Gustav felt the same strange pull towards it. "This must be the heart of Dimension 6, Miss Amy said, "the source of its power and knowledge." Gustav stepped forward, his hand reaching out to touch the crystal. As his fingers made contact, a surge of energy coursed through him, and his vision blurred. Images and sounds flooded his mind, a torrent of information that was both overwhelming and enlightening. He saw the creation of Dimension 6, a place where the boundaries of reality were fluid and the impossible became possible. He witnessed the beings who had first discovered its power, their joy and wonder as they explored its limitless potential. And he saw the warnings, the consequences of greed, and the grim fates of those who had tried to take more than they needed. Gustav staggered back, his mind reeling from the revelations. This place, it's a realm of infinite possibilities, but it must be respected. The power here is immense, but it can be dangerous. Miss Amy placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You understand now, Gustav. Dimension 6 offers great potential, but it demands humility and respect. We must use its power wisely." Gustav nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "We need to take this knowledge back and use it to guide our future. We must ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated." They spent the next several hours exploring the chamber, studying the ancient artifacts and deciphering the glowing symbols. Gustav felt a growing sense of connection to the Slarkovs, each discovery deepening his understanding of his heritage and his potential. At one point, Gustav found a small, intricately carved box. As he opened it, a holographic projection emerged, displaying a detailed map of the Slarkovs' ancient cities and their journey to Earth. He traced the path with his finger, feeling a deep sense of connection to the history it represented. "This is incredible," Gustav said, his voice filled with wonder. "It's like a piece of my past coming to life." Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "You have always had the strength within you, Gustav. The journey ahead will be difficult, but you are ready. Let's return and share what we have learned." Chapter 1546 Origin of the Lock. Chapter 1546 Origin of the Lock. Author's note. Unedited chapter. As they stood hindered before the entrance to Dimension 6, the air thrummed with the energy of the invisible barrier. Miss Amy turned to Gustav with a solemn expression. "This is where my journey ends," she said softly. Gustav's brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" "We've come this far together. We need to get inside." Miss Amy smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. The universal truth is hidden within Dimension 6, Gustav. It is something you must discover on your own. My role has been to guide you here. Gustav shook his head, refusing to accept her words. No, we can do this together. Well, find a way in. He turned back to the carvings on the walls, determined to decipher the secrets they held. As he carefully examined the intricate symbols, he noticed a diagram that depicted a scene of a great door being sealed. The figures in the carving looked desperate, their faces etched with despair. This diagram, it shows the door being sealed, Gustav said, his voice tinged with frustration. It looks like Dimension 6 has been locked for millennia because it was misused, but there has to be a way to open it again. Miss Amy stepped closer, her eyes scanning the diagram. Dimension 6 was a place of infinite possibilities, but greed led to its closure. The warnings were clear. Only take what you need, not what you want. Those who ignored the warnings faced dire consequences. Gustav clenched his fists, his mind racing. But we haven't come all this way for nothing. There must be something we're missing. He continued to study the carvings, looking for any clue that might reveal how to gain access. The more he examined the images, the more he realized the complexity of the challenge before them. The finality of the sealing seemed absolute, and yet he refused to give up. Miss Amy watched him with a mixture of pride and concern. Gustav, sometimes the journey is as important as the destination. What you have learned about your heritage and your potential is invaluable. Gustav looked up at her, determination in his eyes. I understand that, but there has to be more. I need to know the universal truth you mentioned. I need to understand everything. He moved to another section of the wall, where a different set of symbols caught his attention. These carvings depicted a group of figures standing before the sealed door, their hands raised in a gesture of offering. Above them, a single, glowing symbol hovered, a symbol of humility and need. Gustav looked up at her, determination in his eyes. I understand that, but there has to be more. I need to know the universal truth you mentioned. I need to understand everything. He moved to another section of the wall where a different set of symbols caught his attention. These carvings depicted a group of figures standing before the sealed door, their hands raised in a gesture of offering. Above them, a single, glowing symbol hovered, a symbol of humility and need. Miss Amy, look at this, Gustav said, pointing to the carving. It shows people making an offering before the door. Maybe that's the key. Maybe we need to offer something meaningful, something that represents our need, not our want. Miss Amy nodded thoughtfully. It's possible. The Slarkovs often use symbolic gestures to unlock their most guarded secrets. But what could we offer that would meet those criteria? Gustav thought for a moment, then reached into his bag and pulled out the small, worn trinket his mother had given him. It was a simple object, but it held great sentimental value and represented a deep need for understanding and connection. This, Gustav said, holding up the trinket, it's something that means a lot to me. It represents my need to understand my past and my heritage. Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with pride. It's a worthy offering, Gustav. Place it before the door and see if it is accepted. With a deep breath, Gustav stepped forward and placed the trinket on the ground before the sealed entrance. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the trinket began to glow with a soft blue light. The carvings on the wall shimmered in response. An invisible barrier seemed to waver. It's working, Gustav said, his voice filled with hope. The barrier is reacting to the offering. But as the light grew brighter, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The symbols on the wall shifted and rearranged themselves, forming a new message. Miss Amy's eyes widened in realization. Gustav, look at the symbols. They're warning us. Gustav turned back to the carvings, reading the new message with growing dread. Dimension 6 has been locked to prevent further misuse. It cannot be opened again. The light from the trinket faded, and the barrier remained intact. Gustav's heart sank as he realized the finality of the message. So, we can't get in. After everything we've done, we can't access Dimension 6. Miss Amy placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Gustav, this journey was not for nothing. You have gained invaluable knowledge about your heritage and your potential. Sometimes the answers we seek are not found in the places we expect. Gustav shook his head, frustration and disappointment welling up inside him. But what about the universal truth? How am I supposed to find it if I can't get inside? Miss Amy's eyes were filled with compassion. The universal truth is not confined to a single place, Gustav. It is found within you. Your journey, your experiences, and your growth have all been part of discovering that truth. Gustav took a deep breath, trying to steady his emotions. So, what do we do now? We continue forward, Miss Amy said gently. We take the knowledge we have gained and use it to shape our future. You are stronger and wiser than when you first began this journey. Trust in yourself and the path that lies ahead. Gustav nodded slowly, absorbing her words. You're right. I've learned so much, and I won't let this setback stop me. Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with pride. That's the spirit, Gustav. The journey is not over. There are still many discoveries to be made and challenges to overcome. As they turned to leave, Gustav cast one last glance at the sealed door. I won't forget what we've learned here, and I'll keep searching for the universal truth, no matter where it leads me. Miss Amy nodded, her expression resolute. And I will continue to guide you as long as you need me. With renewed determination, they began their ascent back up the chasm. The path was just as treacherous as before, but Gustav moved with a newfound sense of purpose. The knowledge he had gained and the lessons he had learned would guide him in the challenges ahead. As they reached the upper levels of the chasm, the air grew cooler and the light from the magma receded. The journey had been long and arduous, but Gustav felt a deep sense of connection to his past and a burning resolve to shape his future. Finally, they reached the top of the chasm, the desolate landscape of planet Humbad stretching out before them. Exhausted but triumphant, Gustav turned to Miss Amy. Thank you, Miss Amy, he said, his voice filled with gratitude, for guiding me and helping me uncover the truth. Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. You have always had the strength within you, Gustav. The journey ahead will be difficult, but you are ready. Let's return and share what we have learned. With a renewed sense of purpose, Gustav and Miss Amy began their journey back to their base. The knowledge they had gained from the depths of the chasm would guide them in the battles ahead, and Gustav was determined to use it to create a better future for himself and those he cared about. As they walked, Gustav couldn't help but reflect on the journey they had undertaken. They had descended into the depths of the planet, uncovered the secrets of an ancient civilization, and learned valuable lessons about humility, respect, and the dangers of greed. The path before them was still fraught with challenges, but Gustav felt ready to face them with renewed determination and purpose. The journey had been long and arduous, but the knowledge they had gained was invaluable. As they approached their base, the stars shone brightly above, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Gustav felt a deep sense of connection to his past and a burning resolve to shape his future. Miss Amy, Gustav said, his voice filled with determination, we've come a long way, and there's still so much to do, but I'm ready. Whatever challenges lie ahead, I know we can face them together. Miss Amy smiled, her eyes filled with pride. I have no doubt, Gustav. The journey is far from over, but you have the strength and wisdom to overcome any obstacle. Let's continue forward, and may the knowledge we have gained guide us to a brighter future. With that, they stepped forward into the night, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead and use the knowledge they had gained to shape a better future for themselves and those they cared about. SSS Gustav felt his stomach drop. No, there has to be another way. We can't do this if it means losing you. Miss Amy shook her head. The power contained within Dimension 6 is vital. The knowledge and resources it holds can change the fate of countless worlds. But to unlock it, a tremendous sacrifice is needed. The ground continued to tremble, the light intensifying. Gustav could feel the energy growing, the air thick with it. He took a step toward her, desperation in his voice. We can find another way. We can... No, Gustav, Miss Amy interrupted gently. This is the only way. I have seen the future, and this is the path that must be taken. You are meant to enter Dimension 6, and I am meant to open it for you. Gustav's eyes filled with tears. But why you? Why does it have to be you? Miss Amy's expression softened, her eyes filled with love and pride. Because I am the only one who can. And because you, Gustav, are destined for greatness. You carry within you the legacy of the Slarkovs, and the future depends on you unlocking that potential. Gustav shook his head, unable to accept it. I can't lose you. Not like this. Miss Amy stepped closer, placing her uninjured hand on his cheek. You won't lose me. I will always be with you in spirit. My sacrifice will open the way for you to fulfill your destiny. Trust in yourself and in the journey ahead. The ground beneath them began to crack, the light growing blindingly bright. Gustav felt a surge of panic. Miss Amy, please! Goodbye, Gustav, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the energy around them. Remember everything I've taught you. Be brave, be strong, and never forget your purpose. With a final, loving look, Miss Amy channeled all her energy into the ground. The light exploded outward, enveloping her in a blinding flash. Gustav was thrown back by the force of the blast, hitting the ground hard. He shielded his eyes against the intense brightness, feeling the heat and power wash over him. When the light finally faded, Gustav opened his eyes to see the entrance to Dimension 6 standing open before him. The barrier was gone, but so was Miss Amy. The place where she had stood was now a scorched mark on the ground, the remnants of her sacrifice etched into the stone. Gustav staggered to his feet, his heart heavy with grief. Miss Amy, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. Why did it have to be this way? But he knew the answer. She had given everything to open the way for him, to ensure that he could fulfill his destiny. The knowledge and power of Dimension 6 were now within his reach, and he had to honor her sacrifice by using them wisely. Taking a deep breath, Gustav stepped forward, crossing the threshold into Dimension 6. The air inside was cool and filled with a soft blue light. Advanced technology and strange artifacts surrounded him, their designs sleek and otherworldly. He felt a strange sense of calm settle over him, the grief still raw but tempered by a renewed sense of purpose. It'll make you proud, Miss Amy, he whispered. I'll use the power and knowledge here to protect and guide the future. As he moved deeper into Dimension 6, the chamber revealed its secrets. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing detailed records of the Slarkovs' history and technology. Strange machines hummed with energy, their purposes mysterious but intriguing. Gustav approached a large, crystalline structure at the center of the chamber, similar to the one they had encountered before. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and touched the crystal. A surge of energy coursed through him, filling his mind with a torrent of images and sounds. He saw the rise and fall of the Slarkovs, their triumphs and tragedies. He saw the creation of Dimension 6, a place of infinite possibilities and resources. He saw the warnings against greed and the gruesome fates of those who had ignored them. Chapter 1547 Neighboring Planets. Chapter 1547 Neighboring Planets. Author's note. unedited chapter as Dimension 6 began to open up, the entire surroundings trembled with the sheer power being unleashed. The air crackled with energy, and the ancient mechanisms groaned as they responded to the force being exerted upon them. The barrier that had held them back disintegrated into a shower of sparks, revealing the gateway to the enigmatic dimension. Gustav's eyes widened in shock as he saw Miss Amy's figure begin to turn translucent, her edges blurring as if she were fading out of existence. Panic surged through him, and he instinctively took a step forward. "Miss Amy, stop! What are you doing?" Miss Amy turned to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and sadness. "Go!" she yelled, her voice echoing with a strange resonance. "You have to go now, Gustav." But Gustav couldn't just leave her. He took another step toward her, his heart pounding in his chest. "No, I won't leave you. There has to be another way." Before he could reach her, a powerful gust of wind swept through the chamber, lifting him off his feet. He tried to fight against it, reaching out toward Miss Amy, but the force was too strong. The wind carried him through the open gateway of Dimension 6, and the last thing he saw before the entrance closed was Miss Amy's sad, yet proud smile. "Miss Amy!" Gustav screamed, his voice lost in the roar of the wind. The gateway sealed shut behind him with a final, deafening clang, leaving Gustav alone in the heart of Dimension 6. The air was cool and filled with a soft blue light, but Gustav's thoughts were consumed by the image of Miss Amy fading away. Outside Dimension 6, Miss Amy's figure continued to turn transparent, her form shimmering like a mirage. She looked down at her hands, which were now nearly invisible. A tear slipped down her cheek, but her smile remained. "Goodbye, kid," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I loved you. Always remember that." With those final words, Miss Amy's figure dissolved into the ether, leaving no trace of her presence. Inside Dimension 6, Gustav stumbled to his feet, his heart heavy with grief and loss. The chamber around him was vast and filled with advanced technology, but all he could think about was Miss Amy's sacrifice. He sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "No," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "Miss Amy, why did it have to be this way?" He remembered her final words, the love and pride in her eyes. She had given everything to ensure he could access Dimension 6, to unlock the knowledge and power that could change the fate of countless worlds. Her sacrifice had been the ultimate act of love and faith in him. Gustav clenched his fists, his resolve hardening. "I will honor your sacrifice, Miss Amy. I won't let it be in vain." He stood up, wiping the tears from his face. The chamber was filled with strange artifacts and holographic displays, each one pulsing with energy. Gustav took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. He had to make sense of the knowledge contained within Dimension 6 and use it to fulfill his destiny. As he explored the chamber, he felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. The grief and loss were still there, but they were tempered by a renewed sense of purpose. Gustav knew that he had to be strong, not just for himself, but for Miss Amy and everything she had believed in. The crystalline structure at the center of the chamber drew him in, its soft blue light calling to him. Gustav reached out and touched the crystal, feeling a surge of energy course through him. Images and sounds flooded his mind, a torrent of information that was almost overwhelming. He saw the rise and fall of the Slarkovs, their triumphs and tragedies. He saw the creation of Dimension 6, a place of infinite possibilities and resources. He saw the warnings against greed and the gruesome fates of those who had ignored them. But most importantly, he saw the future, his future. He saw himself using the knowledge and power of Dimension 6 to protect and guide those he cared about. He saw himself fulfilling the legacy of the Slarkovs and ensuring a brighter future for all. The vision faded, and Gustav took a deep breath, his resolve strengthened. "I will honor your sacrifice, Miss Amy. I will use what I've learned here to make a difference." He began to explore the chamber in earnest, studying the ancient artifacts and deciphering the glowing symbols. Each discovery deepened his understanding of his heritage and his potential. The journey was challenging, but Gustav felt a growing sense of empowerment. At one point, Gustav found a small, intricately carved box. As he opened it, a holographic projection emerged, displaying a detailed map of the Slarkov's ancient cities and their journey to Earth. He traced the path with his finger, feeling a deep sense of connection to the history it represented. "This is incredible," Gustav said, his voice filled with wonder. "It's like a piece of my past coming to life." As he continued his exploration, he found another artifact, a small, metallic device with intricate engravings. As he examined it, the device began to glow, and a holographic interface appeared. "This must be some kind of data storage," Gustav said, his fingers moving over the holographic controls. "It looks like it contains records of their technology and experiments." He navigated the interface, absorbing the information with a mix of awe and determination. The knowledge contained within Dimension 6 was vast and powerful, and Gustav knew that he had to use it wisely. Hours turned into days as Gustav delved deeper into the chamber's secrets. He felt a growing sense of connection to the Slarkovs, each discovery deepening his understanding of his heritage and his potential. Finally, after days of intense study and exploration, Gustav emerged from the chamber, his mind filled with the knowledge he had gained. The path before him was still fraught with challenges, but he was ready to face them with renewed determination and purpose. As he stood at the edge of the chamber, the cool blue light surrounding him, Gustav felt a deep sense of connection to his past and a burning resolve to shape his future. "Miss Amy," he said softly, his voice filled with determination, "I will honor your sacrifice. I will use the knowledge and power I have gained to protect and guide the future." With a renewed sense of purpose, Gustav stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey had been long and arduous, but the knowledge he had gained was invaluable. The stars shone brightly above, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Gustav took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm settle over him. "I won't let you down, Miss Amy. I promise." With that, he stepped forward into the heart of Dimension 6, ready to use the knowledge and power he had gained to shape a better future for himself and those he cared about. The journey was far from over, but Gustav was ready to face whatever lay ahead, guided by the strength and wisdom he had gained from Miss Amy and his own inner resolve. SSS sometime had passed on Earth since Gustav's departure to planet Humbad. Months had gone by, and the world continued to turn. Those shadows of impending doom seemed to grow longer with each passing day. The Universal Alliance, a coalition of the most powerful and advanced civilizations in the known universe, had come together for an emergency summit. The meeting was held in the Grand Hall of Unity, a massive structure situated on the neutral ground of planet Aglian. The Grand Hall of Unity was a marvel of architecture, with towering columns and a dome that shimmered with 1,000 lights, symbolizing the unity of countless worlds. Delegates from every corner of the universe gathered within its walls, their expressions grave and their voices hushed. The air was thick with tension and anticipation. At the center of the hall, standing before a massive holographic display, was Grand Commander Cheyenne. His silver hair and the diamond shard embedded in his forehead caught the light, giving him an almost ethereal presence. He waited for the room to quiet down before speaking, his authoritative voice echoing through the hall. "Distinguished delegates, thank you for coming on such short notice," Cheyenne began. "We are gathered here today to discuss a matter of utmost importance, one that concerns the very survival of our universe." The delegates exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of his words sinking in. Cheyenne continued, his expression stern and focused. "Over the past 2 years, our scientists have been studying the Death Angel that was captured and brought to Earth. The information we have obtained from this entity has been both enlightening and alarming. It has revealed the true nature of the Dark Plane and its role in the destruction of planet Osius. A holographic projection flickered to life behind Cheyenne, displaying the Dark Plane as a swirling mass of shadowy tendrils, its presence menacing and foreboding. The Dark Plane, Cheyenne explained, is a malevolent force that exists beyond our understanding of time and space. It feeds on chaos and destruction, and it is responsible for the annihilation of planet Osius. But that is not all. Our research has uncovered a prophecy, a series of premonitions that will mark the beginning of the end for our universe. So far, 4 of these premonitions have already occurred. The delegates leaned forward in their seats, their faces etched with concern. One of them, a tall being with emerald skin and glowing eyes, stood up. Grand Commander Cheyenne, can you elaborate on these premonitions? What do they entail? Cheyenne nodded and gestured to the holographic display, which shifted to show a series of ominous events. The first premonition was the sudden disappearance of the celestial guardians, protectors of our universe, who vanished without a trace. The second was the outbreak of a deadly plague that swept across multiple planets, decimating populations. The third was the rise of the Dark Plane's influence, manifesting in increased attacks and anomalies across our galaxy. The fourth, most recently, was the destruction of planet Osius by the Dark Plane itself. Chapter 1548, The Coming of the Fourth. Play volume 00:00/00:00 Pub Future. Fantasy. Tivo. 3 Trivid full screen ads by Pub Future. Chapter 1548, The Coming of the Fourth. Author's note. Unedited. Chapter. The room fell silent as tension rose heavily. Another delegate, a short figure with silver hair and a holographic visor over their eyes, spoke up. And the fifth premonition? What is it, and how can we prevent it? Cheyenne's expression darkened. The fifth premonition is the most catastrophic of all. It foretells a cosmic event that will tear apart the very fabric of our universe, plunging it into eternal darkness. We do not yet know when or where it will occur, but we must be prepared to face it. A murmur of alarm spread through the hall, the delegates voicing their fears and concerns. Cheyenne raised his hand to calm them. We are not without hope. Our research has also provided us with insights into combating the Dark Plane. We have developed new technologies and strategies to counter its influence, but we must act swiftly and decisively. One of the delegates, a regal figure with an elaborate headdress and a deep, resonant voice, stood up. Grand Commander Cheyenne, what are our next steps? How can we unite our forces to face this impending threat? Cheyenne's gaze swept over the room, his resolve unwavering. We must form a unified front, combining our resources and knowledge. We need to fortify our defenses and launch a coordinated effort to push back against the Dark Plane. Additionally, we must locate and protect any remaining celestial guardians, as they hold the key to our salvation. Another delegate, a lithe being with luminescent wings, interjected. What about the premonitions? Can we find a way to prevent the fifth from coming to pass? Cheyenne took a deep breath. That is our ultimate goal. We must decipher the prophecy further and find any means to avert the final disaster. This will require unprecedented cooperation and sacrifice from all of us. The delegates nodded in agreement, the gravity of the situation forging a sense of solidarity among them. They knew that the fate of the universe rested on their shoulders, and they were ready to face the challenges ahead. As the meeting continued, strategies were discussed, alliances were strengthened, and plans were set into motion. The Universal Alliance was determined to stand together against the Dark Plane, their resolve unwavering. In the midst of these discussions, Cheyenne received a private communication from scientist Merkill. The message was urgent and Cheyenne excused himself from the main hall to take it. "Merkel, what is it?" Cheyenne asked, his voice tense. Merkel's holographic image appeared before him, his eyes filled with a mix of excitement and urgency. "Grand Commander, we have made a significant breakthrough. We have developed a new weapon, one that harnesses the energy of the dark plane itself. It has the potential to turn the tide in our favor." Cheyenne's eyes widened. "That's incredible news, Merkel. How soon can it be ready for deployment?" Merkel hesitated. "There are still tests to be conducted, and we need to ensure its stability. But if all goes well, we could have a functional prototype within a few weeks." Cheyenne nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "Keep me updated on your progress. This could be the key to defeating the Dark Plane once and for all." Returning to the main hall, Cheyenne shared the news with the delegates. The room buzzed with renewed hope and determination. They knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay in their path. As the meeting drew to a close, the delegates stood united, their resolve strengthened by the knowledge that they were not alone in this fight. The Universal Alliance would stand together against the darkness, their combined strength a beacon of hope in the face of impending doom. Cheyenne addressed the room one last time, his voice filled with conviction. "We will face this threat together. We will protect our universe and ensure that the light of hope continues to shine. Let us move forward with courage and determination. The future of our worlds depends on it." With that, the delegates dispersed, returning to their respective planets with a renewed sense of purpose. The battle against the Dark Plane was far from over, but they were ready to fight, their hearts united in the quest to protect their universe from the looming threat. In the days that followed, preparations were made, defenses were fortified, and alliances were strengthened. The Universal Alliance stood ready to face the Dark Plane, their resolve unwavering and their spirits unyielding. The fate of the universe hung in the balance, but they were determined to prevail. And as the stars shone brightly above, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the endless possibilities that lay ahead, the Universal Alliance prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, guided by the strength and wisdom they had gained from their shared resolve. In the Grand Hall of the Universal Alliance, the air was thick with tension and anticipation as delegates from across the universe gathered to discuss the impending threat of the Dark Plane. Grand Commander Cheyenne stood at the center, his silver hair catching the light and the diamond shard embedded in his forehead gleaming with authority. The holographic display behind him flickered with images of the Dark Plane and the events that had unfolded. Cheyenne cleared his throat, drawing the attention of the assembled delegates. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have much to discuss today. In addition to the revelations we have uncovered about the Dark Plane and the premonitions marking the beginning of the end for our universe, there is more information that needs to be shared." The room fell silent, all eyes on Cheyenne as he continued. "Based on information provided by Gustav before his departure to planet Humbad, we have come to understand that these premonitions are actually sacrifices. They are part of a ritual to break a seal that was put in place to prevent beings from the Dark Plane from invading our universe." A murmur of shock and confusion rippled through the hall. Delegates exchanged anxious glances, and the air buzzed with questions and theories. A delegate from the Alarian Consortium, a tall figure with emerald skin and glowing eyes, stood up. "Grand Commander Cheyenne, are you saying that these catastrophic events are not random, but deliberate acts to weaken the seal?" Cheyenne nodded gravely. "Yes. Each premonition serves as a sacrifice, a necessary step to break the seal and allow the Dark Plane's inhabitants to enter our universe. The Celestial Guardian's disappearance, the plague, the rise of the Dark Plane's influence, and the destruction of planet Ozius. All of these events were orchestrated to serve this purpose." Another delegate, a short figure with silver hair and a holographic visor, raised a hand. "If this is true, what can we do to stop it?" How can we prevent the final premonition from occurring? Cheyenne took a deep breath, his expression resolute. We must focus our efforts on understanding the nature of the seal and finding a way to reinforce it. Additionally, we need to locate and protect any remaining celestial guardians, as they may hold the key to preventing the final premonition. The delegates began discussing various theories and potential strategies, their voices rising in a cacophony of concern and urgency. Cheyenne raised his hand to calm them. Please let me continue. There is more. The room quieted down and Cheyenne continued. Using the Death Angel as a research material, our scientists have discovered how to open a gateway to the Dark Plane. This information is both a potential threat and an opportunity. It gives us a way to directly confront the Dark Plane, but it also means the Dark Plane can open gateways into our universe. A delegate with luminescent wings, representing the Celestial Guardians, stood up. Grand Commander, how did we come by this knowledge, and what are the risks involved in using it? Cheyenne gestured to the holographic display, which now showed detailed schematics of the gateway technology. The Death Angel, once a powerful entity of the Dark Plane, provided us with invaluable insights. By studying its physiology and the energies it harnessed, we developed a method to create a controlled gateway. However, this technology is highly volatile and dangerous. Misuse could lead to catastrophic consequences. The luminescent winged delegate nodded, their face grave. And if we use this technology to confront the Dark Plane directly, what are our chances of success? Cheyenne's expression hardened. That depends on our preparation and coordination. We will need to fortify our defenses and develop strategies to counter the Dark Plane's influence. It will be a perilous mission, but we cannot afford to stand idly by. A regal figure with an elaborate headdress and a deep, resonant voice addressed Cheyenne. Grand Commander, what is your plan? How do you propose we proceed given the gravity of these revelations? Cheyenne looked around the room, his gaze steady. First, we must solidify our alliances and combine our resources. Every civilization here must contribute to the defense of our universe. Second, we will deploy reconnaissance teams to locate any remaining celestial guardians and protect them at all costs. Third, we will continue our research into the Dark Plane and the Seal, looking for ways to reinforce it and prevent the final premonition. The room was filled with nods of agreement and murmurs of support. Cheyenne continued, his voice resolute. We must also prepare for the possibility of direct confrontation. Using the gateway technology, we will launch a coordinated strike against the Dark Plane. This will be a last resort, but it is a contingency we must be ready for. A delegate from the technologically advanced Hyperion Dominion, a being with a sleek, metallic exoskeleton, spoke up. Grand Commander, we have the technology and expertise to assist in developing and fortifying the gateway defenses. We will commit our resources to this effort. Chapter 1549 Unlocking Universal Truths. Chapter 1549 Unlocking Universal Truths. Author's note. Unedited chapter. Another delegate, a tall, ethereal figure from the mystic enclave, added, We possess ancient knowledge and arcane abilities that may help reinforce the seal. Our scholars will work alongside your scientists to find a solution. Cheyenne nodded, gratitude and determination in his eyes. Thank you. Your support is invaluable. Together, we stand a chance of preventing the final premonition and protecting our universe. The discussions continued, with delegates proposing various strategies and sharing their resources. Cheyenne took a moment to reflect on the enormity of the task ahead. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance, and the responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. Yet, seeing the unity and resolve of the Universal Alliance gave him hope. As the meeting drew to a close, Cheyenne addressed the room one last time. We have a long and difficult road ahead, but I am confident that together we can overcome this threat. Let us move forward with courage, determination, and unity. The future of our universe depends on it. The delegates dispersed, returning to their respective planets with a renewed sense of purpose and resolve. Plans were set into motion, and preparations began in earnest. The Universal Alliance stood ready to face the dark plane, their combined strength a beacon of hope in the face of impending doom. Back on Earth, in the high-tech laboratories, scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to develop and fortify the Gateway technology. Scholars and mystics from the Mystic Enclave collaborated with them, sharing their ancient knowledge and arcane abilities. The air was filled with the hum of advanced machinery and the quiet murmur of intense discussions. Grand Commander Cheyenne oversaw the efforts, his presence a constant source of strength and motivation. He knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but he was determined to see it through. The fate of the universe depended on their success, and failure was not an option. In the days and weeks that followed, progress was made. The Gateway technology was refined, defenses were fortified, and reconnaissance teams were deployed to locate and protect the Celestial Guardians. The Universal Alliance stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the stars shone brightly above, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the endless possibilities that lay ahead, the Universal Alliance prepared to face the dark plane with unwavering resolve. The battle was far from over, but they were ready to fight, guided by the strength and wisdom they had gained from their shared resolve. Grand Commander Cheyenne stood at the forefront, his heart filled with determination. "We will protect our universe," he vowed. "We will stand together and face the darkness, and we will prevail." With that, the Universal Alliance moved forward, their combined strength and unity a beacon of hope in the face of the impending threat. The future of the universe hung in the balance, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, guided by their resolve and the strength they had gained from their shared purpose. SSS, the Grand Hall of the Universal Alliance, continued to buzz with tension and urgency as the meeting pressed on. The holographic displays flickered with images of the dark plane and the events that had unfolded, casting an eerie glow over the assembled delegates. The air was thick with the weight of the revelations shared by Grand Commander Cheyenne. One of the dignitaries, a stern-looking figure with scales that shimmered in the dim light, rose to address the assembly. "Grand Commander Cheyenne, given that we now possess the technology to open a gateway to the dark plane, it seems clear that we must take immediate action. We should strike at the heart of this threat and destroy the forces that threaten our existence." A murmur of agreement spread through the hall, the delegates nodding in unison. Another Alliance leader, a tall figure with elongated limbs and a crown of glowing crystals, added, "Yes, we must not wait for the fifth premonition to come to pass. If we can enter the dark plane, we should launch a preemptive strike and end this threat once and for all." Grand Commander Cheyenne raised his hand, signaling for silence. "I understand your concerns and your desire to take immediate action. However, there are critical factors that we must consider before making such a decision." The room quieted, all eyes on Cheyenne as he continued. "The Death Angel that we have in captivity is not the most powerful entity within the dark plane. In fact, it occupies a relatively mid-level position in the hierarchy of power there. Despite this, it has already posed a significant threat to us here. This is because being trapped in our universe has weakened it considerably. In its own realm, the dark plane, it would be far more powerful." A ripple of unease spread through the delegates. One of them, a stocky figure with metallic skin and a deep, rumbling voice, asked, "What are you saying, Grand Commander? Are you suggesting that we would be at a disadvantage if we entered the dark plane?" Cheyenne nodded gravely. "Yes, that is precisely what I am saying. The dark plane is a realm where the very fabric of reality is different. The entities there draw strength from their environment, becoming exponentially more powerful. Conversely, we would find ourselves weakened in that realm. The forces we would face are not only numerous, but also hundreds of times more powerful than we are. The hall erupted into a cacophony of voices, delegates voicing their shock and concern. The magnitude of the threat was becoming increasingly clear, and the idea of entering the dark plane seemed far more daunting. The dignitary with shimmering scales stood again, his voice cutting through the noise. Grand Commander Cheyenne, if what you say is true, then how do we combat this threat? Waiting for the final premonition seems like a death sentence. We need a plan. Cheyenne took a deep breath, his expression resolute. Our best course of action is to fortify our defenses and find a way to strengthen the seal that keeps the dark plane at bay. We must continue our research to understand the nature of the seal and look for any means to reinforce it. Additionally, we need to protect any remaining celestial guardians, as they may hold the key to preventing the final premonition. A regal figure with an elaborate headdress and a deep, resonant voice addressed Cheyenne. Grand Commander, what measures can we take to ensure the seal remains intact? How can we fortify our defenses against an enemy that is far more powerful in their own realm? Cheyenne gestured to the holographic display, which now showed detailed schematics of defensive technologies and strategies. We must combine our resources and knowledge to develop advanced defensive measures. Our scientists and engineers are already working on fortifying the seal using the insights gained from the Death Angel. Additionally, we need to deploy reconnaissance teams to locate any remaining celestial guardians and ensure their protection. Another delegate, a lithe being with luminescent wings, interjected. And what about the gateway technology? If we cannot enter the dark plane without weakening ourselves, how do we use this technology to our advantage? Cheyenne's gaze was steady as he replied. The gateway technology is a double-edged sword. While it allows us to open a portal to the dark plane, it also poses a significant risk if used improperly. We must use it strategically, potentially as a means to divert or contain threats rather than directly confront them. Our focus should be on strengthening our defenses here and preventing the dark plane from gaining a foothold in our universe. The delegates nodded in agreement, their expressions reflecting a mix of determination and apprehension. One of them, a tall, ethereal figure from the Mystic Enclave, spoke up. Grand Commander, we possess ancient knowledge and arcane abilities that may help reinforce the seal. Our scholars will work alongside your scientists to find a solution. SS Cheyenne acknowledged the offer with gratitude. Thank you. Your support is invaluable. Together, we stand a better chance of preventing the final premonition and protecting our universe. The discussions continued, with delegates proposing various strategies and sharing their resources. Cheyenne took a moment to reflect on the enormity of the task ahead. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance, and the responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. Yet, seeing the unity and resolve of the Universal Alliance gave him hope. As the meeting progressed, Cheyenne outlined a comprehensive plan. First, we will establish a task force dedicated to fortifying the seal. This task force will be composed of scientists, engineers, mystics, and strategists from all our allied civilizations. Their primary objective will be to reinforce the seal and prevent any further weakening. He continued, second, we will deploy reconnaissance teams to locate and protect any remaining celestial guardians. Their safety is paramount, as they hold the key to our defense. Third, we will develop and deploy advanced defensive technologies, combining our resources and expertise to create a formidable barrier against any incursion from the dark plane. The delegates listened intently, their resolve strengthening with each word. Cheyenne concluded. Finally, we must remain vigilant and adaptive. The dark plane is a cunning and powerful adversary. We must be ready to respond to any threat and adjust our strategies as needed. A delegate from the technologically advanced Hyperion Dominion, a being with a sleek, metallic exoskeleton, spoke up. Grand Commander, We have the technology and expertise to assist in developing and fortifying the gateway defenses. We will commit our resources to this effort. Another delegate, a short figure with silver hair and a holographic visor, added, "Our intelligence networks will be mobilized to monitor any signs of dark plane activity. We will provide early warning and strategic insights to ensure we are not caught off guard." Cheyenne nodded, his expression filled with determination. "Thank you. Your contributions will be crucial to our success. Together, we stand a chance of preventing the final premonition and protecting our universe." The discussions continued, with delegates proposing various strategies and sharing their resources. Cheyenne took a moment to reflect on the enormity of the task ahead. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance, and the responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. Yet, seeing the unity and resolve of the Universal Alliance gave him hope. Grand Commander Cheyenne oversaw the efforts, his presence a constant source of strength and motivation. He knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but he was determined to see it through. The fate of the universe depended on their success, and failure was not an option. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.